In the ranch region of Montana, the Black Vultures Motorcycle Club believed they were untouchable. Through terror and bloodshed, they had amassed a criminal empire that had devastated 3 states. However, they committed a tragic error that would go down in criminal history as a legendary one on a spring night. They took hostage Eleanor Harper. The 53-year-old rancher's wife was just what they were looking for, an easy target to coerce her husband into selling their strategically important plot of property. What they failed to notice was the specter concealed beneath her serene grin, the same specter that had tormented criminals for 15 years as the deadliest federal marshal in badge history. The lady who had silently eliminated 27 high-ranking enemies. They dubbed the myth the ghost, since sighting her meant certain death. In their warehouse, encircled by the most infamous outlaw bikers, Eleanor Harper is now precisely where she desires to be, bound to a chair by a zip tie. Because being patient is sometimes necessary to achieve justice. A specter may be required to topple an empire at times. And now, 10 years later, even the most jaded of criminals still duck her name in terror, as the Black Vultures MC is about to discover. Come on, we need a break. Give us the location from where you're watching. If you're interested in this type of stuff, make sure to subscribe because tomorrow we have a really special story in store for you. While doing her routine perimeter check, Eleanor Harper watched the early sun creep over the eastern hill of the Double R Ranch. Her every step was calculated, and the morning dew showed the exact footprints of her boots. From the outside looking in, she appeared to be starting her day just like any other rancher's wife. However, Eleanor continued to keep an eye on things. As she peered through the foliage, she caught a glimpse of Chrome. For the 3rd occasion in the past week, she had observed the identical motorbike leisurely passing the boundary of the property. A variety of riders, all with the identical patch. They were becoming more daring. Black Vultures MC, sitting at the kitchen table inside the ranch house, Edward Harper had a coffee mug in his worn hands. Not taking his eyes from his tablet, which he was using to peruse the local news, he announced to Eleanor as she walked in that they were back again. Today was the 4th pass. With slow, collected motions, Eleanor poured a cup of coffee for herself. A fresh one on top of the 2 from yesterday. Unexperienced Red Harley rider leans too far forward. With a glance upward, Edward locked eyes with hers. After 10 years of marriage, he had learned to decipher her nonverbal cues. Are they no longer merely observing? Sitting across from him, Eleanor couldn't help but crack a little smile. The quantity. Their work is constructing patterns. Assessing the speed of reaction. Our regular timetables, Sheriff Dawson's patrols, and delivery times. She sipped her coffee. They will act promptly. Even though Edward seemed to know her decision beforehand, he nonetheless proposed that we sell. Much more than what the market would bear, the offer is. The ranch has no bearing on this. There was an edge to Eleanor's voice that she seldom let herself display. Along the old canyon route, Black Vultures has acquired or coerced their way into controlling every piece of land. They will not require this last shipment. Why was it done? Exactly that is what I plan to discover. At this moment, the rumble of motorbikes on the main road was cutting into their lengthy gravel driveway, interrupting their talk. With an unhurried gait, Eleanor made her way to the window, her thoughts racing with calculations of angles, distances, and possible hiding spots. 3 motorcycles rode up, with a huge custom chopper at the head of the pack. The rider, identified by Eleanor from the police reports as Dominic Romano, president of Black Vultures MC, is a former military man who was never convicted of any of the many charges against him, including murder and weapons trafficking. From a little biker gang, he had expanded it into a 3-state criminal empire. With the same measured command that had previously guided federal tactical squads, Eleanor admonished Edward to remain indoors. Remain indoors regardless of what occurs or what you overhear. As soon as she stepped onto the porch, the bikes came to a sudden halt in AV formation, the sound of dirt crunching beneath their wheels. Romano extinguished his engine while staying atop his horse, theatrically removing his sunglasses. Two of his friends, who were younger and stockier and had patches that identified them as enforcers, got off their horses and flanked their boss. Romano yelled out to Mrs. Harper with the deceitful charisma of a predator in his voice. "A lovely morning for a bike trip. Mr. Romano, this is your own property." Like any other rancher's wife, Eleanor was awkward around unexpected guests, but her tone was friendly and non-confrontational. "I intended to talk about that very thing just now." Romano gracefully dismounted his bike. "This land. This area is part of our organization's strategy for future growth. Plans that could be advantageous for all," he motioned broadly. "Both of you, including your spouse." His bodyguards feinted to flank her position, which Eleanor noticed. Careless action. Anyone with the right training could read their intents in the telegram. "We're not interested in selling," she responded while staying in her role. "My husband's family has farmed this property." "There has been a shift, Mrs. Harper." Romano's charisma evaporated, leaving behind a chilly underbelly. "We can't stop progress from happening. Skilled people change. Meanwhile, others," he simply shrugged. "Tragically, they often find themselves abandoned." Their suspicions were further reinforced when Eleanor let a hint of panic show on her face. "Make it seem like you were just interacting with a regular rancher's wife. She doesn't deserve their contempt." She had spent weeks instructing them in this same task. "Excuse me, Mr. Romano, are you threatening us?" "Threatening?" A sign of innocence, he spread his hands and grinned. "Here is a path ahead for you. A whopping $2 million, significantly more than what the market would bear. Because I value what you've accomplished with this place." He did a little hardening of his voice. "That deal, though, will expire at some point." As if to convey her fear and fragility, Eleanor embraced herself tightly. "I should probably talk to my husband about this." "Sure thing." Romano grinned again. "Feel free to linger. Reflect about it. Nevertheless, not for an excessive amount of time." A member of his security detail tensed up anxiously as he reached into his jacket. Eleanor saved another tale. Only threats of violence were familiar to the man. Extending a business card, Romano displayed it. With a tiny trembling, Eleanor walked forward to accept it. She counted guns, studied positions, and watched the younger enforcer's demeanor from within. To her, it was clear these weren't your average motorcyclists. There was an air of quasi-military affiliation about them. "Mrs. Harper, 3 days. Then Romano got on his bike. "Next, we'll require a response." As the motorcyclists sped off in a dust deluge, Eleanor remained on the veranda. She didn't alter her demeanor until they disappeared from view. The quivering ceased. Her body language changed somewhat when she lowered her center of gravity. Perfection in weight balance. Her legendary status in federal law enforcement was founded on this position. The specter getting ready to find prey. Coming out of the home was Edward. "Hello, Vicky." She whispered something about it beginning. "Something significant is about to transpire. A cause worthy of sacrifice." Her spouse was able to see the steely resolve radiating from her as she turned to face him. Even the specter had been invited to their celebration only moments before. In the 10 years after Eleanor decided to retire there, Providence Springs had hardly changed. Even though most of the family businesses on the one major street now had security cameras and stronger locks, the businesses themselves remained unchanged. Indisputable proof of the increasing power of Black Vultures. Outside Mitchell's basic store, Eleanor left her battered Ford truck and noticed 3 motorbikes grouped together outside the front door. Hers were the sounds of cries from within. For 3 generations, Rebecca Mitchell's family had owned and operated the store. It was about to transform into yet another form of instruction. Rebecca stood at the counter, her face pallid but determined, flanked by 2 motorcyclists. Threateningly, the third one leaned forward while donning a sergeant-at-arms patch. In his harsh voice, he told Becca that insurance is no longer a choice. The village is evolving. Feel embarrassed if anything were to happen to this lovely spot. Choosing a basket, Eleanor stealthily made her way through the aisles. You could feel her presence. She beheld the hand of the closest motorcyclist quivering ever so slightly toward his jacket. The distinctive hand motion of an ex-serviceman. Adding to the mounting evidence that Black Vultures was part of something larger. Rebecca made it obvious that she had previously paid the business association. According to Sheriff Dawson, the sheriff is no longer in charge. As he mopped the floor, the sergeant-at-arms dumped a display of local honey. Yes, we are. $2,000 every month. Commencing immediately. Typical ranch goods were in Eleanor's basket as she made her way down the aisle. Her actions were slow and non-threatening. A middle-aged woman out shopping, no more, no less. Her voice was soft as she cautiously stepped on sticky honey. Such a disaster. Is there a mop in your home, Rebecca? My pleasure would be to lend a hand with the cleanup. With annoyance visible on their faces, the motorcyclists pivoted. As the sergeant-at-arms began to speak, Eleanor swiftly maneuvered past them and made her way to the counter, retrieving her wallet. She enthusiastically added these to her monthly account and mentioned that she would require a case of the fresh coffee that you brought in. The dark roast variety of beans. Edward is in awe of it. Then Rebecca figured it out after a blink. Sure thing, Vicky. I'll just grab that one from behind. Go at your own pace. At the motorcyclists, Eleanor grinned. Surely these gentlemen were merely making their exit. Who were you guys? In an effort to project an air of superiority, the sergeant-at-arms advanced toward the target. I don't care about this, woman. No. Even though Eleanor's grin was lovely, there was a subtle alteration in her gaze. At a later time, the motorcyclist would attempt to describe those eyes to his brothers. Some chilly object. Suddenly, a reflex he had honed in battle kicked in. Building this town was a family affair for my spouse. His first employment was given to him by Rebecca's grandfather. Perhaps it should be my concern. Ignoring them, she redirected her attention to her grocery list. It was an intentional insult. Calculated. The face of the sergeant-at-arms turned red. Once again, his grip on his jacket jerked. He rumbled, warning Mrs. Harper to be cautious. Mishaps do occur. Nodding off, Eleanor continued to go over her list. That is correct. Remember when your prospect had that awful accident on Canyon Road, like 3 weeks ago? The one nobody talked about? Her gaze locked with his. Someone might have witnessed an accident, and it's funny how that works. Cars passed each other on the road. The incident occurred during a late-night weapons shipment, which is why it had not been disclosed. It was meant to remain a secret. The sergeant-at-arms attempted to regain control by assuring Rebecca that they will complete the task later. However, he no longer sounded aggressive. Perched on the counter, Rebecca slumped as they departed. Vicky, I'm grateful, but that was inappropriate of you. Be careful with them. The answer is yes. Then Eleanor started to remove the honey. And they're starting to get their act together. I am concerned about that. Rebecca picked up the mop. According to Sheriff Dawson, they are merely transitory, involved in a major development project. Does he really say that? A cautious neutrality permeated Eleanor's voice. Curiously, when they attempted to coerce Eleanor Turner into selling last month, his deputy did not tell her that. While Rebecca considered the ramifications, she worked in quiet for a while. The shopkeeper had good eyes, she could spot the trend. Rebecca said slowly that they are purchasing all the acreage around Canyon Road. Alternatively, pressuring someone to sell involuntarily. But for what reason? It's simply ranch land. Very possibly. Eleanor wiped the floor clean. Additionally, it is the shortest path that leads straight to the interstate from the Canadian border. Lots of undeveloped space. Certain areas do not have cellular coverage. Apt for transporting items that should not be driven on public roadways. Her eyes widened in surprise. In your opinion, there. I believe it would be a good idea for you to go on vacation, Eleanor softly said. Come see your sister in Denver. Period of 1 or 2 weeks. Not me. The shop. Hey Rebecca. Although her voice was kind, Eleanor exuded complete dominion. Listen up, Providence Springs, because something is going to happen. For the sake of some, it's preferable if no one is around while they do. She went outside and put her belongings into the truck. A text message from Edward rang her phone. Following your departure, Sheriff Dawson came by to inquire about our intentions regarding the ranch. Eleanor grinned. It was just as she had foretold that the pieces would move. The chaos of the devil was becoming anxious. Struggling more. They were thus faced with a time constraint. It was about to happen. It took us a long time to prepare and tell this narrative. So, please subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying it. We really appreciate it. We will return to the story now. Pulling onto a dirt turnout, she drove to the outskirts of town. The canyon road, which led northward toward Canada, was visible to her from her vantage point. Under the guise of rural medical transport businesses, she had begun researching a weapons trafficking organization a decade earlier. She had progressed to Montana in the case before her supervisors abruptly terminated her. At this point, Black Vultures began acquiring property along the same path. Once again, her phone beeped. Code obfuscated. The writing was succinct. They're keeping tabs on you. Anxiousness rising. The same as before. I deleted the message, Eleanor said. Her former business partner, Marshal Kane, was keeping tabs on developments. Very well. When the moment arrived, she would require assistance. As Eleanor made her way home, the afternoon sun threw deep shadows over the canyon. A motorbike was seen in her rearview mirror trailing after her at a slight distance. Unofficial watch-keeping. As she turned her attention to them, they stared at her. Just right. A perfect storm was brewing. It was almost time for the ghost to emerge from retirement, and Black Vultures MC was about to find out why the mere mention of her name could still make weapons traffickers scream in the night. However, she had to fulfill their every want before anything else. An apparently defenseless rancher's wife, primed to be exploited by her husband. I am the ideal target. An ideal snare. As she drove, Eleanor grinned. The den may be the ideal hunting ground for certain predators. A state-of-the-art medical facility constructed with funds from an old ranch, Dr. Joseph Bennett's clinic, was situated on the outskirts of Providence Springs. Eleanor noticed 3 newly installed security cameras as she entered the parking lot. High-end models with infrared capabilities. It was not the kind of machinery that a doctor in a small town would typically install. Bennett was in his office, looking over patient records on his laptop, when she arrived. His eyes betrayed the restless nights he'd spent there. As he hurriedly shut the laptop, he spoke to Mrs. Harper. Next week is when your physical is scheduled. Eleanor saw the new cameras as she settled into a chair. Looking for a little drama, Joe? Softly, Bennett spoke after casting a quick peek toward the door to his office. Tragically wounded 3 members of Black Vultures arrived at the hospital last night, claiming to have been in a hunting accident. Caressing his thinning locks, he spoke softly. Actually, those wounds weren't from hunting rifles, they were from military-grade weaponry. Her expression remained neutral, as did Eleanor's. A hunting mishap? Sheriff Dawson's report states that, but I witnessed the devastation myself, Vicky. Such hits were delivered by experts. Aiming to incapacitate without killing, via through-and-through wounds. Bennett drew nearer. There is a message sender. Someone with complete expertise. Someone in the waiting area started shouting before Eleanor had a chance to answer. The two Romano bodyguards who had been at Mitchell's store suddenly barged in. The bigger one pointed toward Bennett with a finger. Please relinquish the files you were viewing at this very moment. Sitting in the corner, seemingly forgotten, was Eleanor. As Bennett rose to his feet, she observed his hand slipping toward the drawer of his desk. Doctor with experience caring for service members. A weapon would be within his reach. According to Bennett, patient records are strictly confidential. It is something you are aware of. A second enforcer produced a handgun. Careless action. Threatening instead of action. Without thinking about it, Eleanor made a list of his flaws. Too much forward lean. Grasp overly firmly. His gaze fixed on the enemy rather than darting around to avoid danger. The term, confidential, is no longer relevant, Doctor. My boss needs those files and... Furthermore, why is your supervisor interested in access to sensitive medical information? Dissolving the tension, Eleanor's voice broke through. Despite her inaction, the two enforcers were captivated by her tone. The armed man cautioned Mrs. Harper to stay away from this. This is none of your concern. No. Eleanor let forth a small smile. Could you tell me if Romano gave you access to all of Dr. Bennett's records? Or simply those pertaining to the hunting accident that occurred last night? A look passed between the two enforcers. The bigger one moved closer to her. Get out of here. Right now. As a matter of fact, Eleanor rose gracefully, causing the two guys to immediately retreat. Someone needs to tell Romano something, in my opinion. You could tell him that if he is serious about cleaning up his act, he needs to instill better weapon discipline in his troops. 3 casualties caused by friendly fire, that's careless. Armed with a pistol, the enforcer raised it. By what means were you able to? In a similar vein, I am aware that a shipment is arriving tonight. Eleanor's tone became icy. Similarly, I am aware of the true motivation behind your land acquisitions along Canyon Road. Same way I found out about the shady border agent arrangement. Both guys flushed. There was a separation of those pieces of data. It is important that no one outside of Romano's close group knows about it. Can you tell me who I am? One of the bigger ones wanted it. Mrs. Rancher, nothing more. Eleanor strode casually toward the entrance, yet she was right in the middle of their danger zones. Just for the time being. However, you inform Romano that his operation has undergone a change. Looking on is someone. Someone with good eyesight. She stopped at the entrance. By the way, the next time you guys show up armed to a doctor's appointment. She gesticulated. Ted toward Bennett's workstation. Verify if the individual you're targeting has any weapons. Following her departure, the law enforcement officers discovered Bennett subdued, clutching a compact .45 beneath his desk. Disregarding the files, they departed. While contemplating the encounter, Eleanor drove home along Canyon Road. Her assumptions were verified by the reaction of the enforcers. While operating their professional weapons shipments, Black Vultures also used their medical facility to treat patients in the event of mishaps. There was more to the operation than simply weapons, though. Everything from the property deals to the links with border agents to the weapons fit for a military. Everything was pointing to a bigger picture. Someone rang her phone. This is Marshal Kane's second text. Extra activity seen at the deserted Miller warehouse, according to satellite imagery. Coordinates with the El Paso case pattern. With a clenched grip on the wheel, Eleanor accelerated. El Paso was her final official operation before she was forcibly retired. A global weapons ring that employs motorbike gangs as a front. Prior to someone in charge shutting it down, the investigation had taken it to Montana. Similar trends were beginning to appear now. When she returned home, she discovered Edward observing the sunset from the porch. From town, they followed you, he whispered. Two motorcycles maintain their spaces. Their confidence is growing. The features of his wife's face were scrutinized by Edward. Are you seriously going to allow them to abduct you? The quickest route is this way. A delicate touch from Eleanor to his arm. Something major is happening at Romano's organization. A cause worthy of sacrifice. Yet they are careless. Full of themselves. Like El Paso, of course. You nearly lost your life due to that situation. No. Hardness set in Eleanor's eyes. We became too close to a strong person, which led to the closure of that case. Someone who was hoping to keep their involvement in the global arms trade a secret. Here we see the same operation manifesting itself. She retrieved her phone and showed Edward the message sent by Kane. There is the Miller warehouse. With perfect sight lines, that's where they'll lead me. Many ways out. You can easily reach Canyon Road. When Romano thinks, he follows patterns that the military does. Even if I'm mistaken. With a smile that sent shivers down Edward's spine, Eleanor made a statement. Hardened criminals confessed instead than facing her interrogation because of her grin. Yes, I am correct. Tomorrow at this hour, Black Vultures will act. In order to get you to sell the ranch, they will use me as a bargaining chip. There was unwavering conviction in her voice. By that point, the Spectre has decided to come out of retirement. At that point, our work in El Paso will come to a close. Eleanor got herself ready as night fell. Discreet surveillance equipment, backup weapon storage, and strategically placed materials. For a ghost to hunt, everything was there. For the simple reason that Eleanor Harper hadn't only played the role of rancher's wife for the past 10 years. Before the operation could resurface, she had been waiting, preparing, and keeping an eye on it. She had finally stumbled across her chance for glory at Black Vultures. She just needed to trick them into thinking they were the predators. A velvet cloak of night descended upon the Double R ranch. Observing her security cams, Eleanor sat in the dark. 5 members of Black Vultures were seen positioning themselves in the tree line on the covert cameras she had placed around the property. Their behaviors corroborated her worst fears. Not your average motorcyclists. Using conventional tactical methods, they advanced with military accuracy. Inaudibly, her phone beeped. Randall Kane. Recognition of faces verifies. Romano has 3 new members who were previously in the Special Forces. Remaining unit from El Paso that went missing. In the shadows, Eleanor beamed. All the parts were starting to fit together. The identical unit that had ensured the safety of the weapon shipments she had been probing before to her involuntary retirement. Having teamed up with Black Vultures, they had arrived. As 2 dark SUVs drew near, their beams illuminated the ranch house. Aside from motorbikes, an era of true experts had begun. They've arrived, she whispered. Behind her, in the shadows, Edward's voice arose. Finally, an opportunity to approach things in a different way. No. Before leaving, Eleanor double-checked her covert transmitter. Their perception of control must be elevated. Have to learn how they do things. For an instant, she reached out and cupped his hand. Keep the signal in mind. Suppose I don't update it every 6 hours. I remember contacting Kane. Apprehension tightened Edward's voice. I mean, come on. Reconnect with me. Every time. Just as Eleanor had foretold, the initial flashbang slammed through the front window. Skillfully and efficiently, the tactical team broke through. Working in tandem, with synchronized time and coordinated motion. If she had been in a different lifetime, she would have praised their method. With a convincingly horrified expression, Eleanor allowed them to locate her in the kitchen. As if it were second nature, the squad leader zip-tied her hands while wearing a tactical mask. He communicated on his radio after securing the target. There are no issues. Rapidly, They transferred her to the waiting SUV. Eleanor paid close attention to every detail while hiding her nervousness. Team of 6. Advanced tactical equipment. Hand signals used in military operations. This was a daring operation by a motorcycle gang. Romano sat contentedly near the cars, watching. Apologies for the grand entrance, Mrs. Harper, but we had to make our point. Tell me what you need. As a result, Eleanor's voice quivered. Repeated from earlier. A ranch. But now your spouse is much more driven to sell. He couldn't meet Romano's eyes with a smile. Prior to the signing of the documents, you will be treated as our guest. The time it took to drive to the Miller warehouse was precisely 12 minutes. With each twist, Eleanor kept track. Documented each and every radio transmission. The disciplined approach to communication was upheld by the tactical team. This was again another indication that these were not your run-of-the-mill crooks. Her findings were corroborated by the arrangement within the facility. Security jobs for professionals. Streamlined monitoring apparatus. Safe communication hub. It wasn't merely a staging area. It was a base for operations. They fastened her to a chair in the main office, where she could observe their every move. Excessive confidence. They hoped she would feel powerless in the face of their professionalism and might. Is it easy? A chair was raised by Romano. Rest assured. Get this done quickly. We have communicated our requests to your husband. You will be released once he has signed the transfer paperwork. The terrified expression on Eleanor's face remained fixed as she watched. Teams were seen unpacking packages from a recently arrived truck via the office windows. Containers used for military transport. Serial numbers matching the pattern from El Paso. Why? She inquired. Her eyes welling up with tears. What makes our ranch special? That piece of land isn't really noteworthy. There is, in fact, Romano leaned back, relishing in his arrogance. Soon, Canyon Road will play a pivotal role. New doors are opening for some companies. The last thing we need is your ranch. His focus was captured by a disturbance at the loading dock. Quickly, one of the guys of the tactical squad came charging over. Excuse me, but there is an issue. Conflicts exist between the cargo manifests. The routing codes have been altered. A carefree air left Romano. Please, show me. Eleanor stood at a nearby desk and observed as they combed through papers. A member of the tactical team indicated a spot on a laptop screen. You can identify these serial numbers. They are being monitored. The shipments are being watched by someone. No way. Now Romano was really worried. Those are secret codes. To the military only. This is no longer the case. An individual on the squad spoke more quietly. The words were all picked up by Eleanor's trained ears. This is consistent with what transpired in El Paso, sir. That time when the entire enterprise was about to be exposed by that federal marshal. Fear was the expression that Eleanor maintained. And yet, on the inside, she beamed. She was brought precisely to her destination by them. Central to what they do. The same as in the past. Her phone, tucked away in a secret pocket, jangled once. The recognition by Marshal came. During the kidnapping, she had attached tracking devices to their vehicles, and now they were broadcasting. Everything was moving along as expected. Back he came. Subtly hidden anxiety had supplanted his former self-assurance. Revised agenda. We shorten the schedule. Secure the buyer's communications. Tonight, the entire load will be moved. It seems that one of his soldiers raised an objection, sir. At this time, the border crossing is not guarded. To finish, Romano ran his fingers through his hair. That's not right. El Paso is becoming too familiar. This must be completed before 2. With skepticism creeping up his spine, he froze and stared at Eleanor. She allowed her disguise to fall for an instant. Permit him to perceive the true essence of her sobs. Romano retreated unconsciously. "Can you tell me who I am?" Eleanor grinned. And it finally reached her eyes that night. That same grin that has stricken terror into the hearts of lawbreakers for 15 years. "I thought you ought to have looked into it further." Subtly, she spoke. "I should have done more research on the person I was dealing with." But then El Paso's gun dealers blundered too. Romano's complexion turned white. "The ghost," he murmured slowly. "You are the specter." His tactical squad moved nervously all around them. Some people still gave the term credence even after all these years had passed. "Take this as a cordial caution," Eleanor went on to say. Her voice exuded the same subdued authority that had previously forced cartel bosses to come clean. "Let me go now. Drop Montana. I will conclude with this. Keep going with the shipment for tonight." In defiance of her limitations, she shrugged. "The events in El Paso are well known to you. One may have anticipated Romano's reaction. Put 2 guards on her. Nobody enters or leaves the building without my explicit permission." His body drew near to Eleanor's. "Whatever you are, you will not be able to halt this shipment. This is going to cost too much." Numerous influential individuals. "I know," Eleanor said in a composed manner. "I am relying on that very thing." Vicky started mentally counting down the minutes as they abandoned her in the office. With 3 hours to go, Kane's squad would be ready to go. The buyers of firearms would arrive in 2 hours. That is precisely the amount of time a ghost needs to get ready to hunt. Anxious activity buzzed through the Miller warehouse. As Eleanor watched from her safe vantage point. With a skilled eye, she observed Romano's operation via the office windows. Guards rotate in 3 shifts every 4 hours. Police bands are monitored by a communication center. Guarding the perimeter are tactical troops. Impressive, if not perfect. One of the younger guards came up, carrying a bottle of water. He was marked as a potential prospect by his patch. James, as his tactical vest bears his name. Looked like a former soldier. However, disbelief was evident in his gaze. "I am grateful, James." When Eleanor called him by his name, he flinched slightly. "Do you mean Marine Force Recon? Is Afghanistan in the picture?" His facial expression validated her assessment. "You did what?" "Your movement. Those unique scanning patterns used by Force Recon." She sipped some water. "What did they inform you regarding the shipment that is due tonight?" "You are not someone I should be speaking to." In spite of this, his curiosity persisted. "Without a doubt. The specter poses a threat even while restrained to a chair." He felt uneasy at the slightest hint of edge in Eleanor's voice. "Nevertheless, you're not convinced just yet, are you? Curious as to why elite tactical teams are required for a straightforward land grab? The radiation warning labels on those containers are unnecessary." Teams were getting the shipment ready at the loading dock, and James glanced over there unconsciously. Eleanor took note of the response. "Nuclear markers. Here we have yet another puzzle piece. The objects they are transporting are more than simply weapons," she murmured. "That much is obvious to you, isn't it? There is no need for specific procedures when handling standard firearms. Leave the former military security detail alone. Quiet down." But he didn't sound very confident. "Was El Paso mentioned to you by Romano? When was the last time this crew assisted with freight transportation?" Romano pushed open the door as he walked in, his expression contorted with wrath. "Interact no further with the inmate." He motioned for James to leave and then shifted his attention to Eleanor. "Have you tried to sway my guys once? You still have what it takes. Just chit-chatting. Joyful smiles spread across Eleanor's face. Thinking back on simpler times. Do you recall El Paso's Staff Sergeant Wilson? Who was it that assisted us in revealing the operation? His immunity was extended to the fullest extent. A small fissure appeared in Romano's facade. There is no way out of this for you. Being the ghost doesn't make you any less alone. There is no backup. Not a single tactical group. Do I? His tension was heightened as Eleanor made a small movement. Can you confirm that? One of his communication experts interrupted him before he could answer. Movement, boss. A swarm of cars is heading north. Early birds are buying. On his watch, Romano saw the time. Prepare the shipment. Not the purchasers. The expert's voice betrayed genuine worry. Various pattern of approach. Highly competent. They are choosing to remain silent. A change in Romano's expression caught Eleanor's attention. Hoping for a different person. Her question was harmless. Someone texted him. His expression became lifeless as he perused the correspondence. Just how? There is no way this can be. Those frequencies are classified. So, are they? The tone of Eleanor's voice was nonchalant. When purchasing weapons, be sure to inquire about the operational security measures they take. Especially the protocols they use for communicating. Careless frequency matching with El Paso. Romano leaned in close, grabbing her chair. Just tell me. Am I? Hold me, please. However, it seemed from her smile that the opposite was true. Though it's a good idea to search your cars for surveillance equipment. How a kidnapping often unfolds. Plant trackers during the initial contact. In their haste to appear competent, your tactical team neglected even the most fundamental forms of counter-surveillance. Outside, there was a fresh uproar. Rushing in was one of the leaders of the tactical team. Excuse me, but there is an issue. My neighborhood's police scanner went off. Authorities at the federal and state levels are working together. On every possible approach to Canyon Road, they are erecting barriers. Make it stop. According to Romano's command. Give it a good scrub. Make sure the purchasers know. Now it's too late. His increasing terror was interrupted by Eleanor's voice. The obstacles aren't appearing at random. They're trapping you by utilizing your own strategy to their advantage. Routine protocol for ghosts. Lock them up in their own stronghold. Once again, Romano's phone beeped. The message caused him to slur. Potential purchasers are pulling out. State that the temperature is excessive. Without a doubt, they are. The chair became a more comfortable fit for Eleanor. Experts in the armament trade dislike red tape. They just need a small flick of the government pen to vanish, leaving behind their cash. She could observe the operations unraveling through the windows. Positions being abandoned by guards. Teams engaged in tactical conflict on evacuation procedures. The professional front is beginning to crumble under the strain. Romano said that you were behind the plot. The purchasers being scared, the kidnapping, and the tracking devices. You were hoping to be discovered. To some extent, that is accurate. Eleanor looked up at him serenely. I had to make sure that El Paso was still connected. Recognizing the true participants was essential. Romano, the ones up there. Those responsible for ending my inquiry a decade ago. Over the speakers in the warehouse, a fresh voice crackled. Marshal Kane's sound is signature. Behold, the chaos of the devil. The government is involved in this. You are encircled by our forces. All pathways out are sealed. Given right this second. The final shard of Romano's self-assurance fell to Eleanor. Do you not know what follows? Those who were interested in purchasing from you have left. Every one of your tactical squads is prepared to go. The evidence is already being destroyed by others further up the chain. Breaking links. You're playing the odds, Romano growled. Just the two of you, Kane, are attempting to, another expert burst in. Attention, boss, we have satellite coverage. Superior quality for military use. Someone is using targeting data to paint the building. Eleanor grinned. Am I still being bluffed? Federal scrutiny wasn't the only thing that made your buyers wary. I made them flinch. Worried that the specter may have revealed something embarrassing about their business. Referring to their ties to El Paso. As soon as the members of Black Vultures saw the trap they were in, the warehouse descended into anarchy. Many were eager to get into a battle. Finding ways out had already been a priority for others. Separated from the rest were the expert tactical squads. Having an emergency conversation using their encrypted channels. Give it one more shot, Romano. The conviction in Eleanor's voice was palpable. Give in right this second. Give us all the details about the purchasers. Regarding the secret shipments. Concerning El Paso. She simply shrugged. The last company that failed to recognize the ghost's power had a tragic end, as you may recall. For what seemed like an eternity, Romano stared at her, considering possibilities that were quickly fading. It was possible to see government vehicles lining up outside. The net was drawing near. The specter was out on another hunt. She managed to get them precisely where she wanted them this time. A veritable pressure cooker had emerged in the Miller warehouse. While federal forces closed their perimeter, Eleanor watched as Romano's group fractured. As they took up defensive positions, the professional tactical teams distinguished themselves from the normal members of Black Vultures, displaying their evident military experience. With apprehension, the youthful hopeful, James, approached Romano. Those detectors for radiation. Data extracted from such containers is being shown. Where are we taking this? Stop talking and stay where you are, Romano yelled out. However, Eleanor detected the terror concealed beneath his fury. The operation was falling apart at a rate he couldn't keep up with. Romano, tell him, Eleanor urged from her chair in a calm manner. Describe the unique parts of the weapon to him. They are the ones who require the containers lined with lead. These are the ones that your purchasers are prepared to shell out millions of dollars for. As I said, be quiet. With a little trembling, Romano drew his pistol. The head of the tactical team rose to his feet. We have to make a choice, boss. Telecommunicators used by Locke. Outlaw enforcement indicate the arrival of federal tactical forces. At least 3 different agencies. The excellent explanation given by Eleanor was that they are following ghost procedure. Multiple agencies, synchronized strategy. Just like in El Paso, I used this method. At Romano, she grinned. Keep in mind the outcome of that. Half of the group attempted to give up in the hopes of striking a bargain. On the flip side, medical facilities in 3 states were swamped. James spoke softly as he drew nearer to Eleanor. How did El Paso come to pass? Romano began to say, don't answer, but the sound of Eleanor's voice interrupted him. Trafficking in weapons on an international scale. Foreign purchasers being sold components of military grade. Does that ring a bell? As she observed James's expression change, she realized something. Same protocols, same buyers, same everything. There were identical radiation warnings printed on the boxes. In a low voice, the head of the tactical squad swore. The contents of those crates aren't only components for weapons, are they? Nuclear components are being transported. As more members of Black Vultures overheard, the warehouse burst into angry shouting. Normal motorcyclists enlisted with the purpose of smuggling narcotics and firearms, not nuclear weapons. As the Vultures unfolded, Eleanor took pleasure in her work. Romano accused, his face turning pale with anger, that you're enjoying it. A tremendous amount. The guards around Eleanor tensed up as she fidgeted in her chair. "Romano, keep an eye on your soldiers. Can you make out their division?" Members forming a tight cluster, with those with military training stationed near the exits. Sides are being chosen by them. Similar to El Paso. The perimeter was rocked as federal soldiers detonated their first breach charge, causing an explosion. Just establishing their position, no penetration yet. Standard protocol for ghosts. Substantial psychological strain preceding physical violence. "Your Highness." From his station, a communications expert called. "We are obstructed. Darkness falls onto all frequencies." "Tell me, Romano," Eleanor said, her voice resonating amidst the mounting vultures. "Have your purchasers addressed the fate of operators that fail? Those responsible for cargo losses? Only because I am cognizant of the fact that, complete with records of mishaps and vanishings, there have been further blasts outside." The sound of Marshal Kane's voice resounded like a booming amplifier. "Take note, all employees. The presence of nuclear materials on site has been confirmed by satellite. A government containment operation is underway. Give up now or we'll employ deadly force." It had an instant impact. Declining their weapons, regular Black Vultures members started to riot. Teams of expert tactical players set up a defensive perimeter. Their actions betrayed their uneasiness, though, and Eleanor could see it. "Components of nuclear bombs," James murmured with terror. "We have been transporting parts for nuclear weapons." Eleanor discreetly informed him that it was not his fault. Former service members are handpicked. Submissive men do not inquire. Prior to the end of the time, someone rang Romano's phone. As he perused the message, his complexion turned pale. "Yeah, that's true. They assured me. How about I take a guess?" Eleanor asked with a smile. "Just now, your purchasers formally severed all ties to this enterprise. Procedure followed in the event that a cargo is compromised. They are deleting records and breaking linkages at the moment. The elimination of eyewitnesses will commence shortly." An arm was seized by Romano by the tactical team commander. "Would you agree with her? Will they scorch us?" So yet, no one has been burned. He was thrown aside by Romano. "We follow the rules. Get rid of the proof. Got rid of eyewitnesses. Release the grip." She included. Then James pointed to Eleanor. "Are you suggesting that we murder a federal marshal?" Romano corrected the former marshal. But he didn't sound very confident. In reality, Eleanor beamed. "I submitted my paperwork for reinstatement this morning. Directives from Marshal Kane. Utilitarian federal power." She locked eyes with Romano. A federal officer's murder might be added to the nuclear trafficking accusations, right? Yet another explosion is approaching. Eleanor could observe the federal tactical units advancing into position through the windows. True to her intentions, the warehouse had transformed into a trap. "Possibilities, sir." A mix of military precision and terror resounded in the voice of the tactical team leader. "There is very little time left." As Romano struggled with his dwindling options, Eleanor observed. Additional members of Black Vultures were surrendering outside. Some of the professional teams were clearly preparing to fight, while others were forming smaller groups to run. "Romano, 10 years," she whispered. "I patiently awaited the resurgence of this operation for a decade. In order for the genuine participants to emerge. You even guided me to their location." Once again, Romano's phone beeped. On this occasion, reading the letter caused him to falter as genuine fear spread across his countenance. "Here they are." An hushed murmur escaped his lips. Eleanor's grin expanded. "The purchasers. Very well. I was looking for a personal visit." The chair creaked as she moved it once more. "A specter can't pursue an unseen prey," after all. Up till this moment. As they drew near the back entrance of the warehouse, 3 dark SUVs with diplomatic plates caught the attention of the surveillance lights. Based on their patterns of mobility, Eleanor identified 12 persons who emerged as private military contractors. Even with his pricey outfit, their leader's tactical vest was visible. Eleanor whispered, "Marcus Drake, identifying the arms dealer from her El Paso records. Presumably, you're still claiming diplomatic immunity." To meet her gaze, Romano pivoted. "Does he know you?" "Sure thing. He buried my probe, called in favors, and ordered the El Paso operation shut down." A menacing grin spread across Eleanor's face. "Long time no see until we can finally meet in person." Drake strode in with the self-assured style of someone who commands attention everywhere they go. With great efficiency, his security detail dispersed and took over crucial locations previously held by Black Vultures. To Mr. Romano, Drake's voice exuded an air of refined authority. "This facility is secure, you told me." "It is," Romano began. But Drake interrupted him. "Is that so? After that, in the open air, describe the federal tactical squads. Describe the breach that occurred on our secure frequencies." He looked across at Eleanor. "Give the federal marshal an explanation for why he is being held in your office." Autocorrect was engaged by Romano, the ex-marshal. "No." As he studied Eleanor, Drake drew nearer. "The specter appears here. Our El Paso operations almost exposed, boss." He cracked a small smile. "I was hoping you would show up again. So I gave in," Eleanor said with composure. "All shipments have the same radioactive signature and follow the same careless methods. Marcus, it seems like you're never going to learn." James, the promising young man, trembled anxiously. "Is it radioactive? You mentioned that these were merely weapons, boss." Quiet down. No longer could Romano maintain control. "Keep your positions and don't say a word." However, Eleanor noticed a change in the dynamics of the warehouse. As members of Black Vultures started to retreat, they realized the magnitude of their involvement, and Drake's security team began to isolate the nuclear components. "Were your soldiers not informed?" Drake arched an eyebrow in Romano's direction. "Operational security is lacking, similar to El Paso." Then he looked over at the head of security. "Get ready for the cleaning procedure." Looking through her old case files, Eleanor recognized the code phrase. "Marcus, are you still tying up loose ends?" Similarly to the 3 troops who vanished following El Paso. The tactical teams felt the effects right away. When they heard a command to clean up, they knew it was coming. A 3-way standoff ensued between the professional contractors, Black Vultures, and Drake's men as some advanced toward the exits and others brandished firearms. Once again, the perimeter was shaken by an explosion. All over again, Marshal Kane's voice boomed. "You have been warned. Tactical troops are prepared and ready to go. Give up now or we'll use deadly force." Drake warned Romano in a hard-nosed manner that their operation was compromised. "You can't trust your men. It is time to let the experts deal with this." The commander of the tactical squad stepped forward with lightning speed. "We will not be defeated in this. Not going to El Paso to become clean like those gents." As the stress rose, Eleanor kept track of the angles and distances. Her efforts to loosen her grip went unnoticed within the mounting vultures. Even though they were using high-quality zip ties, Romano's men failed to notice the ceramic razor concealed in her belt. Unprofessional error. She nonchalantly announced that the ghost wasn't the only one who maintained files. "There is a duplicate of everything with Marshal Kane. Various nuclear components, diplomatic cover, El Paso. Everything goes public after just one phone call." Drake's normally cool demeanor showed a small fracture. "This is a bluff." "Do I?" Eleanor grinned. "Verify your designated channels for sensitive information." Does something seem to be missing? Such as the shipment's route codes. Which ones are now being uploaded to federal servers? Took Drake by the arm, Romano said. We were assured of security and immunity, as you had stated. The chief of security for Drake acted expertly. Before Romano could complete his sentence, the muzzle blast knocked him down. As the three groups began to turn on one another, gunshots broke out in the warehouse. Because of the vultures, Eleanor was able to take action. James, the youthful hopeful, ducked for refuge behind her chair as the ceramic blade ripped through her shackles. She spoke calmly, "Make your choice now, James," as bullets flew by. "Assist me in safeguarding those nuclear parts. Your immunity is granted." Determined to flee, she shrugged. "And you've seen how Drake deals with snags." The federal tactical forces started their penetration outside. A battleground for rival factions, the warehouse had descended into chaos. The experts at Drake are attempting to secure the shipment. Chaos reigns as demons battle for their lives. With the help of tactical contractors seeking a way out. However, the single most crucial aspect of ghost hunting had slipped their minds. The most dangerous predator isn't always the one you believe you've caught. James shielded Eleanor's flank as she glided silently through the vultures. While federal teams breached, she made sure that the nuclear components remained out of Drake's hands. Similar to El Paso. But now she had everything she needed. There is evidence of a global plot. Evidence of Drake's participation. The witnesses are prepared to speak. There was a spirit that had escaped. And now the actual hunting could commence. Using the vultures as cover, Eleanor skillfully maneuvered through the firefight. While she maneuvered between the cargo containers, James remained close by, following her lead. His background in the military was evident. Superb awareness of one's surroundings. Effective tactical distance. During a short break in the action, she mentioned the nuclear components. "Just where is it?" "Storage Bay 3, James said as he checked his ammo. Containers lined with lead, radiation warnings. Yet, between us and, are Drake's troops. As soon as one of Drake's security squads noticed them, a barrage of gunshots cut him off." As she studied the angles and locations, Eleanor drew James behind a concrete pillar. The trio consists of 3 experts armed with silenced firearms and tactical gear. Prior special forces as determined by their mobility patterns. With an air of calmness, she reminded him of his force recon training. The 3-man wedge configuration has no counter. After James blinked, he got it. With the help of crossed lines of fire, he and Eleanor separated from Drake's men as they advanced, disrupting their synchronized approach. It was true what they said about the ghost. While James drove the 3rd operator to flee, she incapacitated 2 with pinpoint rounds to their body armor, killing none of them. As they continued forward, Eleanor complimented the effort. Marshal Kane's voice, broadcast over the warehouse speakers, declared the start of the federal breach. Chaos and bewilderment ensued as a result of many detonation points. The shooting was muted by Drake's authoritative voice. "Put those containers on lockdown, everything else is secondary." As they escorted James along a service corridor, Eleanor noted that James seemed quite distressed. The nuclear components are really a front for him. It's worth risking your life for what's inside those crates. They arrived at a catwalk that provided a view of Storage Bay 3. Down below, while tactical contractors and remnants of Black Vultures fought a running gun war, Drake's men were getting ready to transfer the specialized containers. A text message from Kane rang Eleanor's phone. "Spacecraft verifies distinct thermal signatures emanating from containers, does not correspond to nuclear profile." She spoke softly to James. "Which color did those containers' radiation warning symbols use?" "Typical colors, red and black." Realization struck him, and he halted. "The colors magenta and yellow are used for nuclear alerts." "Hold on a second." Eleanor grimaced and smiled. Drake has a history of deceiving people. Although he's sending something else, he's going to go to great lengths to conceal it, because even his own buyers believe they're receiving nuclear materials fit for weapons. As federal tactical forces entered the warehouse for the first time, another explosion shook the building. As the rest of Black Vultures dispersed, Drake's security personnel reacted with expert precision. "Hey, boss," one of Drake's operators shouted. "The federal government has breached teams on all three fronts. There is very little time left. According to Drake, pack those containers. If necessary, follow Protocol 7. A harsh look crept upon Eleanor's face. Seventh Protocol, similar to El Paso. Protocol 7, what is it? While dodging bullets that ricocheted against the railing of the catwalk, James inquired. Rather than allowing it to be seized, thermite charges destroy everything. Eleanor made sure her ammo was in order. They destroyed everything, even their own men, and buried the evidence in that way the last time. Down below, while still fending off FBI troops, Drake's operators started laying charges. A complex battlefield had erupted in the warehouse. Multiple points of entry were used by federal agents. Hell's revenge battling for life and death. Seeking escape routes, tactical contractors pursue. Meanwhile, Drake's experts are doing their best to safeguard their shipment. "Time to put a stop to this," Eleanor whispered. "James, I'm counting on you to divert attention. Draw their gaze upwards as I handle." Something moved, and she looked. As one of Drake's men prepared to plant charges, he opened a container. Eleanor glimpsed inside for a fleeting second. Not parts of nuclear reactors. Some other stuff. Something caused her to mutter an expletive. "The containers," she remarked. "They contain data storage, servers, and hard drives." Finally, James's expression changed. "Information. They are data in transit. Data of a specific kind." Grimaced, Eleanor spoke. "As far as quantum encryption servers go, those are fit for the military. Technological systems that are not well understood. Data from intelligence activities, secret assets, and black site locations are stored in this type. According to James, who spoke in a low voice, someone is stealing sensitive secrets. Using nuclear materials as a facade." As federal forces broke through the east wall, the building was jolted by another explosion. Amidst all the vultures, Eleanor caught sight of Drake making his way towards a safe exit. Led by his surviving operatives, he remained safe. She instructed James to make a decision swiftly. "Assist me in hindering Drake's progress. You are immune to any harm. Your entire operation here has been officially authorized." Nodding, James examined his firearm. "What's going on?" "Getting to those servers before the thermite goes off is the first order of business." Eleanor then grinned. The look that made James's spine tingle. "Then we'll prove to Drake that I was really a ghost." Down below, Drake's men had completed the charging process. They were about to wipe out proof of the greatest intelligence theft in history. However, they had erred on one critical point. They'd provided the Spectre with precisely what she required. Confirmation of a global plot. This is the proof of Drake's real business. And the opportunity to complete the task begun in El Paso. Along the edge of the catwalk, Eleanor stepped. A lot of tough criminals had given up and surrendered when they heard her voice, which had that air of subtle authority. "All right, James. Just tell me what you learned about predator hunting from Force Recon." After a while, the Spectre stopped defending. It was time to set the record straight on why that moniker had been a source of criminal terror for the past 15 years. As if on autopilot, Eleanor and James breezed down the runway. The federal breach points are being used as a shield. Subsequently, the thermite charges were being initiated by Drake's troops. "I am getting ready to wipe down the intelligence servers." As Eleanor checked the angles, she indicated that we have 3 minutes from the onset of those charges. The server casings will be melted through the subsequent thermite burns. "Excuse me, sir," one of Drake's operators asked. "There has been an incursion into the East Corridor by federal teams. Personally, Marshal Kane is at the helm." Drake's calm demeanor crumbled. "Set in motion all fees. The federal government must not inherit anything." Then he looked over at the head of security. "Have the backup process ready, just like in Tehran." Vicky's pupils widened. "Located in Tehran." I failed to notice that relationship. Her concealed communication device was activated by hitting a key. "Are you getting it, Kane? Ignore me if you like." The shooting in the background didn't deter Marshal Kane. Drake and Tehran are both operating under the same umbrella. Do you recall the compromised CIA server farm? That one where a thermite explosion occurred just before sensitive documents vanished? In the midst of all the vultures, Eleanor could make out Kane swearing. "Uncle of A. He isn't pilfering intellectual property at random. Covert operations, assets, locations, and protocols are all part of the database he's creating. According to Eleanor, that's enough to jeopardize all Western intelligence agencies. The nuclear parts were only for show. Nuclear cargo is not examined by anyone in particular. Overwhelmed by paperwork and the number of agencies involved." James double-checked his ammo stock. "How do we put a stop to their malicious actions?" As she took her place, Eleanor clarified that the charges are sequential. If they don't go off in sequence, the safety features will activate. Protocol for standard intelligence gathering. Grimacing, she smiled. "I had a hand in creating that same protocol." The guys under Drake had begun the routine down below. A dazzling flash accompanied the initial thermite charge's ignition. The final days of the server are running out of time. James was now set in motion by Eleanor's order. They tumbled down the runway and onto the cargo containers below, turning Drake's strategic placement to his advantage. The cover positions his troops had set up were ideal. So long as they are not attacking from below ground. Attacks from on high caught them off guard. Like her nickname suggests, Eleanor slithered gracefully between cover locations. Before Drake's operators could see that the onslaught was coming from an unexpected direction, two of them had already fallen. With his force recon training, James showed himself. The remaining security squad was forced to retreat due to the precision covering fire. The wait staff. Drake's voice suddenly betrayed genuine fear. Guard those server instances. The first row of containers was still beyond Eleanor's reach. She acted with the deftness of an expert, eliminating the thermite sequence that she had contributed to creating. James managed to pin down Drake's soldiers. The federal breach teams were moving in different directions. "Yeah, Marcus, it's over." With that subtle authority in her voice, Eleanor yelled out. "Everyone can see your whole operation. Everywhere from Tehran to El Paso. Dealing with this is beyond your comprehension." All of a sudden, Drake lost his cool. "You won't believe how high this goes. Authorities with the power to vanish, such as governments and intelligence services. So, you may claim credit for causing the CIA operatives to vanish in Tehran, right?" The following batch of charges was taken up by Eleanor. Likewise, the El Paso-based NSA analysts. The warehouse was invaded by additional federal teams. Though tactical speakers, the voice of Marshal Kane resounded. "Protect those servers, everyone. Top priority." Drake's surviving operatives began to retreat. Those in the know realizing it's toast. However, Drake appeared to lose it. With an item from his jacket in his hand, he sprinted over to the servers. "Nobody can get their hands on the files if I can't," he said angrily. A gadget that Eleanor has seen before. Emergency charges connected to a dead man's switch. Trusting James to protect her flank, she went fearlessly. The switch went flying when her initial shot struck Drake's arm. His tactical vest was struck by the second one, sending him reeling. However, Drake had more in store. With his offhand, he produced his sidearm and fired indiscriminately. Stopping what? You don't even know what it is. The strength of the documents. The unknowns. Hey, Marcus, that's on you. As she drew nearer, Eleanor's voice took on an almost delicate quality. To you, secrets are a source of dominion. They are responsibilities in my eyes. The last showdown progressed at a breakneck pace. Despite his diplomatic credentials and fine clothing, Drake demonstrated a recollection of his special forces training. In a deadly waltz of close-quarters warfare, he and Eleanor both sought the upper hand. However, they referred to her as the Ghost for a reason. The last blow was completely unexpected by Drake. He went from charging forward with his assault to being bare-knuckled and disarmed in an instant. His head was crushed by the weight of Eleanor's pistol. "Tehran," she murmured gently. "Del Rio. Every one of those agents who vanished. Keep up the pace, Marcus. Until I determine that you pose a too great threat to capture alive." The warehouse was surrounded by federal teams as they secured it. The last of the Black Vultures laid down their arms, and the tactical contractors did the same. As Marshal Kane drew near, James stood watch, his tactical squad looking for any last dangers. According to Kane, the servers are safe. Our arrival at them was apparently timely. All intelligence files have been preserved. Vicky maintained her aim on Drake with her firearm. So simple, wasn't it? As if someone had intended for us to retrieve these particular servers. There was no humor in Drake's laughing. At long last, you got it, didn't you? I see your point. Such servers were used as bait. Those actual files. The process at hand. Coldly, he smiled. It's coming. You have no clue. Eleanor locked gazes with Kane. They were both aware of the consequences. The issue had expanded beyond the theft of intelligence. A larger matter had been sidetracked by someone using Drake's operation. Some information is so important that it warrants the sacrifice of a whole intelligence ring. Federal authorities have designated the Miller warehouse as a crime scene. Assaulting the server containers were technical teams, and the perimeter was protected by tactical units. As they analyzed preliminary data, Eleanor informed Kane that the servers were a distraction while she observed them from a makeshift command post, her mind deciphering patterns that others would miss. While something larger took shape, Drake wanted us to concentrate on the theft of intelligence. Gets the idea. Kane used his tactical tablet to access satellite imagery. In addition to the elevated activity here, we have detected it at 3 additional locations along Canyon Road, and they all have the same radiation signature. James examined the pictures as he was now formally part of the government team. Those were the homes that Black Vultures insisted their owners sell. They required the entire path. Virginia gave a subtle nod. Server relocation not supported. In order to transfer another object. Something significant enough to warrant expendable intelligence operations. Drake, whose once pretty outfit was now soiled and ripped, sat tied close by. However, a disturbing serenity had replaced his previous terror. It remains invisible to you, isn't it? Eleanor caught his smile. In all your years of paranormal research in El Paso, you never once inquired as to who actually terminated your case. Who was in charge of that kind of thing? In response to Assistant Director Phillips, Eleanor spoke up. There were issues with national security, he said. Softly laughing, Drake remarked that Phillips was a messenger. There are higher powers at work, Ghost, just as there are higher powers at work with me. Factors that reduce your federal badge to the size of a plaything. They were distracted by a disturbance outside. 2 further vehicles bearing official government markings and a black SUV with diplomatic license plates had arrived. As scheduled, Drake whispered. From the SUV, escorted by security, a man in a pricey suit stepped out. His stride was assured, as if he were accustomed to walking on air. Without hesitation, Eleanor identified him. Williamson, the Deputy Director of the National Intelligence Agency. "This is starting to get interesting," she whispered. Under his breath, Kane cursed. Oversight of the Tehran operation was Crawford's responsibility. The one where the servers vanished. The one where the agents vanished, as Crawford drew near, Eleanor corrected. Similar to El Paso. As Crawford approached the command post, his security detail dispersed in a methodical fashion. He had a political, rehearsed smile. "You have uncovered quite a predicament, Marshal Harper. The operation is now being overseen by national security officials, which is unfortunate. We'll handle the rest." Eleanor gave him a thorough examination. "Would you be so kind? Had you conquered Tehran, perhaps? Should I go to El Paso?" Crawford maintained a grin, but a hardening of his gaze was noticeable. "Marshal, be cautious. Some inquiries are beyond your area of expertise. Examples include the Deputy Director of National Intelligence's apparent bias towards a motorcycle gang's illicit weapon trade." With a neutral tone, Eleanor spoke. "Alternatively, the reason that radiation traces have been detected at many locations along Canyon Road. According to Crawford, this operation is now classified. Mr. Drake, along with all the inmates and evidence, will be taken into federal custody." Now I could understand Drake's composure. He had anticipated this moment. James, in his capacity as a military expert, raised his voice to address Marshall. "Radiation signatures are in motion. A trio of convoys, all marching northward towards the border with Canada." Members of Crawford's security detail delicately adjusted their positions, drawing nearer to their firearms. The atmosphere at the command post became increasingly tense. Crawford gave the order for Marshall to stand down. "There's an official order from the NSA saying that." Chills raced across the room as Eleanor grinned. "The issue is this, Director. This enterprise has been under my watch for the past decade. Keep an eye out for trends, make connections." Her methodical composure frightened Crawford's security detail. "El Paso's closure is finally clear to me. Exactly why Tehran was laid to rest. Reason being, a high-ranking intelligence official is personally supervising the operation. Transferring a secret weapon that could result in a fatal outcome if compromised." Crawford slightly shattered her political mask, revealing her lack of knowledge about the situation. "The death toll of American intelligence agents is the most important factor." Vicky interrupted him. "As soon as they approach too closely, they vanish, are killed, or buried in an accident. In the same way that you had intended for El Paso and me." Crawford reached for his coat. "It's sufficient. Officers, apprehend them. To a person." However, this was what Eleanor had been anticipating. A pre-recorded message was broadcasted to every federal frequency by her phone. "Operation Clean Sweep has commenced, therefore all units should take note. Validation code, Ghost 7 Delta." The tactical squads were repositioning themselves as they could be seen via the warehouse windows. Not Crawford's guards, but the citizens of Eleanor. The ones that she had painstakingly placed for a decade. Having a longer game, she whispered to the director. "I was gathering armies while you were spooking out ghosts." A look of genuine terror crossed Crawford's face. "Not possible. The safety of the nation depends on this operation. Objects undergoing transfer." "Exactly what is it?" The authority in Eleanor's voice was palpable. "Reason being, the convoys will be occupied by every government agency in 3 states in around 30 seconds. Then speak quickly, Director. Through Canyon Road, what exactly are you transporting?" The game had just been altered by the specter. Who or what was actually at the top of the conspiracy? Even while Crawford's security detail remained positioned, Eleanor could discern a hint of doubt in their demeanor. Expert operators knew when things had changed beyond their control. Such convoys. In the midst of analyzing tactical information, Eleanor maintained a level head. Their destination is well beyond the border. They're getting closer to one another at exact locations. Is the Deputy Director of National Intelligence's coordination with foreign buyers taking place on American soil? If so, could you please clarify? That is not your domain. Crawford was about to speak when Eleanor interrupted. With the live feeds shown, she informed him that 3 teams of federal tactical units were advancing to intercept. Visualization of your convoy routes via satellite. Above all else, her smile was icy. Comprehensive documentation of each procedure you have submerged. Del Rio. Located in Tehran. Oh, absolutely. James came over, his iPad brimming with fresh information. Marshal, the convoy loads have thermal imaging. Does not correspond to any recognized radiation profile. Eleanor stated, because it's not nuclear material, as she observed Crawford's response. Director, is that so? All it was a smokescreen for your true intentions. If it were worthwhile, it would compromise national intelligence. Still more, Crawford's political mask began to crumble. My dear, you have no idea. These materials are extremely secretive. In excess of the usual procedure. Excuse me, but one of his security detail has just reported. All exits to Highway 17 have been sealed off by federal forces. Encirclement is closing in on the convoys. A ding rang on Eleanor's phone. In charge of arranging the intercept is Marshal Kane. Groups positioned. Leaders of the convoy are formally demanding directions from Crawford. Feeling anxious. Move quickly, Director. As she observed Crawford's face turn red with fear, Eleanor offered some advice. Because the convoys will reach our roadblocks in around 5 minutes. At that point, everyone can see what you're actually carrying. Nothing can be done to stop this. With an air of desperate authority, Crawford spoke. The safety of the country depends on these supplies. To our alliances and the bonds amongst us. Allies? His security detail became nervous as Eleanor approached. Just like Tehran's purchasers. Who vanished after obtaining their goal? Our intelligence agents. For a second tactical feed, James looked. You are Marshal. There has been an attempt by Convoy 2 to veer into county highways. Moving to intercept our local units. Crawford reached for his phone, but Eleanor snatched it before he could. Allow me to make an educated guess. Endorsing the use of deadly force, similar to what happened in El Paso. She proudly displayed her own phone, demonstrating the signal jammer to him. Understood, Director. No more hidden processes. Agents have resurfaced. You are not authorized to do this. It was Crawford who started, but he was interrupted by Eleanor's laughter. Instead of authority, I have something better. Subtly, she spoke. This is proven. Documentation of each operation that you have penetrated. Each agent that you have given up. With any foreign intelligence service you have done business. With a nod, she acknowledged James. Make it clear to him. Crawford could see photographs from the surveillance camera, financial documents, and communication logs on James's tablet. A decade of meticulously collected proof. As Eleanor said, you've been engaged in chess playing. The game I've been playing has been longer. Consider all of the websites you've visited. All of the paths you've made. Any contacts you've established. I have been observing. Patiently awaiting. Putting together the evidence that would reveal all. There was a growing air of doubt among Crawford's security detail. Protecting government officials was the specialty of these operations. However, this was not part of their training. They were fired for finding out their boss was endangering the country's security. A cautious "sir" was said by the squad captain. We must be informed. Has the Intelligence Committee given their approval for these shipments? Crawford told everyone to get down. Still, there was a little quiver in his voice. Vicky exerted her dominance. Director, inform them. Inform them about the individuals who actually purchased the properties. They are the ones who have been buying secret information, getting their hands on prohibited documents, and trying to cover their tracks. James contacted the marshal in a hurry. We are halting Convoy 3. Its security detail consists of. They're handing themselves up to federal forces. Crawford drew a concealed handgun and moved with frantic haste. This was also something that Eleanor had been anticipating. Before his own security could respond, she disarmed him with experienced accuracy in response. She remarked that unscrupulous officials are to blame for this as Crawford knelt, holding his wounded hand. No matter what, they insist on being the most intelligent people there are. Ignore them at your peril. Once again, her phone beeped. Keep Kane informed. It was in every convoy. You must observe their belongings. We underestimated the depth of this. Once his security detail was apprised of the situation, Eleanor ensured that Crawford was adequately secured while they kept him covered. With a whisper, she revealed the specter that had terrorized his criminal dreams. Let's have a chat about your true motivations and the people you're actually serving while you traverse my domain. Something had shifted. The operation's true nature was about to come to light. Plus, Crawford was going to find out why people referred to her as the ghost. The moment she began her hunt, there was nowhere she could hide. Even Eleanor was taken aback by the initial pictures from the convoys that were stopped. There was no evidence that the trucks were transporting nuclear material or weapons. Something even more perilous was in the shipment. National Security Agency servers, hardware, and data. Quantum computing components. According to James, he reviewed the manifest. Advanced artificial intelligence systems for research purposes. An algorithm for defensive prototype. All the components required to construct a military command system fit for the future. Now safely restrained, Crawford let out a sour laugh. Nothing you've done has made any sense to you. Arrangements finalized. The deals struck with foreign spy agencies. Do you mean something similar to these? On the screens of the command post, Eleanor showed the intercepted messages. Arrangements with renegade intelligence agencies. Sale of secret studies. The export of military technologies to other countries. She observed Crawford's response. Your security clearance authorizes all of this. The tactical comm picked up Marshal Kane's voice. Hey, Ghost, check this out. Ship 3 was transporting personnel records. A list of clandestine employees. Locations of safe houses. Details about an ongoing operation. Eleanor noticed Crawford's look and knew he wasn't just selling technology. It seemed as if he were betraying our whole intelligence network. Every single agent. Each and every task. Every security protocol. You think too small, Crawford said with a sneer. The stakes are higher than IQ. Beyond the realm of national security. Future military might is at stake here. New data was brought to James's attention. Marshal, we are keeping tabs on a number of unapproved satellite uplinks. The other Canyon Road locations have emergency measures triggered. Coldly, Eleanor grinned. Hey, Director, are your buyers starting to become crazy? Witnessing the impending disclosure of their investment. At this point, Crawford's voice betrayed his genuine concern. You have no clue who you're up against. Killing witnesses isn't the only thing these individuals do. They delete full procedures. Put an end to entire agencies. Similarly to what they attempted in El Paso. She drew nearer, revealing the predator lurking beneath her composed facade. Director, I need to know who exactly gave the order to halt my investigation. Who can cover up proof of global tech theft with sufficient power? Urgently, James yelled out before Crawford could answer. A swarm of cars is heading north. However, the thermal traces are not diplomatic plates. They are transporting equipment of a military caliber. Are you all about to arrive as masters? Eleanor inquired of Crawford. The ones who have been purchasing nuclear secrets from the United States. Crawford's complexion turned white. My dear, you have no idea. People will be killed by them. Thoroughly clean the entire operation, similar to Tehran. Absolutely not. Eleanor's voice exuded unwavering conviction. Not at all. Her tactical communicator was keyed. Here we are, the Ghost, all you units. Carry out the Shadow Protocol operation. Federal squads, who had been hiding around the warehouse's perimeter, came out of hiding. Specialized operators rather than standard tactical units. Eleanor had spent a great deal of time and energy recruiting and promoting them. Director, see? Calmly, she explained. I was constructing my own intelligence network as you were selling ours. Each and every agent you intimidated and attempted to censor. I inspired them with a fresh goal and a strategy to resist. On the tactical feeds, James kept an eye. Entering our quarantine zone are foreign teams. 8 automobiles, please. People with weapons on the loose. Allow them to come, Eleanor whispered. Just wait till. They test the limits of American operators' tolerance. They treat our people like commodities when they attempt to buy and sell us. He was unable to free Crawford from his shackles. You are not authorized to do this. This is a group of external intelligence agencies. Amnesty for diplomats. He was cut off by Eleanor because diplomatic immunity does not apply to treason. Does not provide any protection to individuals who betray their own nation. As the trucks drew near, her attention shifted to the tactical screens. And it certainly doesn't protect hostile foreign agents operating inside the United States. They could observe the foreign teams assuming positions through the windows of the command station. Skilled operators, accustomed to operating with relative anonymity while maintaining diplomatic cover. What was ahead of them was beyond their comprehension, though. The Ghost had spent the last decade preparing for this moment, assembling a formidable army to face corrupt government officials and secret spy agencies. It was time to prove to them that you should never provoke some predators. Eleanor quietly gave the instruction to James. Make it clear to them what happens when they try to hunt us down. The actual procedure was going to start soon. At that point, the Ghost had finished playing defense. The international squads blundered badly from the start. Dealing with this as though it were a typical deniable process. They advanced in a coordinated group of vehicles. As a cover, operators are prepared to invoke diplomatic immunity. Nobody from Eleanor's entourage was on their radar. As other groups drew near, James brought news from the tactical team. The usual pattern of infiltration. To protect the convoys, they are moving. As the trap was about to spring, Eleanor observed it via the windows of the command post. Have they revealed their strategic routes? Thank you, ma'am. In Tehran, they utilized the identical frequencies. Cryptically, she grinned. Connect me. Her voice crackled on the tactical channel of the foreign operator. Take note, clandestine foreign intelligence units. American soil. Lady Eleanor Harper, Marshal. On American land, you are carrying out hostile actions. Take a knee or face swift punishment. Their response was expected. With their weapons prepared, they speed up their approach. Protocol followed in cases where diplomatic immunity was at risk. With an air of desperation, Crawford warned that they would not stop. You have no idea what these people are capable of. No, Eleanor quietly corrected. They failed to comprehend our capabilities. Her tactical communicator was keyed. The containment protocol is executed by every unit. As secret federal operators surfaced from their hiding places, the international team's formation abruptly crumbled. Not your average combat brigade, but rather the specialist units that Eleanor had built up over the years. Experienced operators who knew exactly what they were up against because they had survived earlier cleanup efforts. One of the international team captains contacted you via the tactical channel in a moment of extreme urgency, sir. We're trapped. These federal units aren't like the others. Eleanor responded via their communication that we aren't like other federal entities. It was our group that you sought to eradicate. Those who managed to make it through the cleanups in Tehran, El Paso, and everywhere else you've been. While Eleanor's squad methodically corralled and isolated the foreign operators, James kept an eye on the tactical streams. The efficiency of professionals versus the efficiency of professionals. The inhabitants of Eleanor, on the other hand, were more prepared and possessed a more justifiable rage. Jim yelled out to the marshal. New orders are being placed with foreign teams. Some sort of electronic warfare system is being powered up by their diplomatic vehicles. As expected, Eleanor gave a subtle nod to the secret signal squad. They disabled the foreign team's high-tech equipment by activating jammers that had been strategically placed. Still another stratum of getting ready unveiled. As his contingency plan fell through, Crawford's terror grew. There is no way this can be. These rules. Such degree of cooperation. What's impossible, Eleanor interrupted, is believing you could continue betraying American agents without facing any repercussions. That we wouldn't be able to communicate, set up a defense, and gather together. They could observe the foreign team's realization of their predicament through the windows of the command post. Where diplomacy was concerned, it was of no use. They were unable to use their sophisticated weaponry. Opponents who had researched their strategies and processes were waiting for them. They were ready to fight back against them. On their tactical channel, Eleanor announced that this was their last chance. Quit fighting with me now, or find out why they say I'm a ghost. The feeds were reviewed by James. Teams from other countries are sending in special squads, perhaps counterintelligence operators. Very well. Eleanor flashed a menacing grin. Make sure they see the inside of a legitimate counterintelligence operation. Lethal accuracy was displayed by her clandestine squads. Using all the knowledge they had gained from surviving past confrontations. A pattern of systematic isolation befell the foreign operators. They lost all of their tactical advantages. The diplomatic guise they wear is deceiving. Eleanor informed Crawford, this is what happens, while they observed. When you defect from your own side. Whenever you cede control to other nations. They remain in existence. Their knowledge is enhanced. Adapt. Return with more strength. Now Crawford's expression betrayed his true comprehension. A tactical team wasn't all you put together. Created a shadow agency. As Eleanor pointed out, we constructed ourselves. You succeeded in eliminating every single agent. No operator was spared from your cleaning efforts. Here we were, together. Very well prepared. Got ready for this. James made an immediate report. The foreign teams are trying to set off a failsafe, Marshal. Bomb signal sent from a distance. She told him it was blocked. Following Tehran, we researched their protocols. They can't use explosions anymore to hide their tracks. Realizing they were in a trap, the foreign team's tactical channel burst into frantic chatter. They couldn't use their diplomatic credentials to frighten these federal agents, they were special agents. They managed to stay alive. Operators that have fought and survived against their cleanup crews in the past. A foreign commander frantically dialed the number, sir. The use of maximum force requires authority. According to Eleanor's response via their communicative, your authorization is useless in this situation. The diplomatic approach has been abandoned. And this is a verdict. The meticulous containment that her troops had begun around the warehouse's perimeter persisted. The operators from other countries had to deal with the fallout from their past mistakes. The very agents they had set out to eradicate have reappeared, this time with a virtuous intent. The specter's pursuit was about to peak. And it was almost time for the hunters to be the hunted themselves. An incident on a global scale had made the Miller warehouse its epicenter. While technical units collected the intercepted convoy items, Eleanor's squads maintained containment of the foreign operations. According to James, there are 2 further diplomatic trucks making their way from the east. Various setup. It seems like there are command and control units. Virginia gave a subtle nod. Command is being assumed by their senior officers. Punctual as promised. Cindy looked over at Crawford. Would you care to let me know who the true boss is at your company? When foreign intelligence teams arrive in the United States, who can authorize their deployment? Fear had taken the place of Crawford's former hubris. My dear, you have no idea. All is under their control. Intelligence services, military contracts, international security protocols. In a low voice, James introduced Eleanor to the Shadow Council while displaying his tablet. The convoy files contain references, Marshal. Overriding regular intelligence channels, there exists an international oversight group of some form. Eleanor analyzed the information. Not a mistake. Infiltration. Snatching up secret technology by means of dishonest bureaucrats like Crawford. Security networks are compromised. Make sure no one gets too near. Crawford cautioned that they will continue. Nothing is left hanging by the council. They will set fire to everything. Put an end to everything. Much like their attempt in Tehran. The lethal calmness was in Eleanor's voice. Perhaps El Paso. That's the issue with being covert, Director. Real spirits can be found on occasion. New action erupted in the foreign tactical channel as soon as the command trucks arrived. While they were chatting, James listened in. The transmission of several authorization codes is underway. Some sort of kill switch in the convoy supplies is what they're attempting to activate. Assuredly, Eleanor stated that it would not work. The cores of the quantum computers have already been isolated. Not a single protocol for self-destruction or remote access. In response to Crawford's shock, she grinned. Tehran was our teacher. Say goodbye to those pesky accidents that you used to cover up. They watched as the international teams regrouped around their new commanders via the windows of the command post. Expert operators are shifting their strategies in anticipation of a better coordinated attack. James called very urgently, Sir. Restricted frequencies are being broadcasted by the command vehicles. Consistent with the El Paso procedure. A harsh look crept upon Eleanor's face. Please, show me. Her suspicions were reinforced by the tactical screen, which indicated communication patterns. She elaborated that these aren't merely foreign intelligence agencies. My probe was effectively halted by this individual. In reality, Crawford is employed by those. James comprehended the council. In person, they're present. Without a doubt, they are. By checking her tactical streams, Eleanor maintained her composure. All of their stolen tech, compromised agents, and operation proof is in our possession. Attempts to contain this must be made. He was unable to free Crawford from his shackles. Dealing with this is beyond your comprehension. Everything is under the Council's jurisdiction. International security, military operations, intelligence services. No, Eleanor interrupted him. Folks like you are under their power. Public servants so corrupt that they would be willing to betray their nation. On the other hand, they've never encountered folks like us. Those that managed to evade their cleaning efforts. Whoever mastered the art of hunting returned. A fresh voice cracked the foreign tactical channel. Educated, commanding, accustomed to complete submission. You have created a significant issue, Ghost. We might want to talk about the terminology. Counselor Devon, Eleanor said with composure. Is diplomatic immunity still being used as an excuse? In contrast to Tehran, did you send your wet work crews this time? A brief break in the broadcast. After that, it seems like you have a good grasp of the subject. I had a whole decade to investigate your operation, identify your tendencies, record your crimes, and construct a case that would lead to your arrest. The conviction in Eleanor's voice was palpable. Curious about what else I discovered. What other proof have I found concerning the Shadow Council? Still nothing. This is a bluff. Our security measures are impenetrable. Eleanor advised you to check your encrypted channels. Does something seem to be missing? 10-year archive includes secret correspondence, plans for operations, and funds transferred. Incredible resources are available if you know how to seek them out. James watched how the international squad responded. Marshal, they're getting fresh information. They're terrified about something. According to Eleanor, those are the files that were just sent to all of the world's main spy agencies. Evidence of the presence of the Council. The way they do things. Their wrongdoings. Embrace a world without shadows. They could observe the foreign operators' professional demeanor crumbling through the windows of the command station. This amount of publicity was too much for even the best teams. You've just started a war, Devon said with a tone that betrayed his growing anxiety. Eleanor refuted the claim. I've recently completed one. The struggle you've been engaging in with your own intelligence and protection agencies. Cryptically, she grinned. Here you are, counselor, at the haunted hunting ground. It is time to face the music. The true climax was on the brink of happening. At long last, the thickly tinted windows of the command van swung open, exposing the Shadow Council for what it really was. Someone stepped forward. Elegant men in pricey suits, rather than the intelligence operatives or military operators whom Eleanor's squad had been holding. Power used to reside in cozy offices, not in the heat of battle. Through the window of the command post, Eleanor, Reznikov, Chen, and Devon, the counselors, recognized them. A group of people with actual power over foreign intelligence operations. They were the ones who had El Paso laid to rest. James double-checked his strategy's updates. Intelligence agencies all over the globe are responding, Marshal. In all of the main capitals, your evidence dump has created vultures. It is, of course, said Eleanor with a chilly smile. Surprisingly, 10 years of secret council actions were revealed. Everything involving corrupt officials, corrupted agents, and illegal operations is now open to the public. With increasing terror, Crawford watched as the members of the council approached. They will destroy everything and murder everyone. Witnesses are out of their price range. It was your error, Director, Eleanor interrupted him. Ignoring reality in favor of their shadowy ways of thinking. Her tactical communicator was keyed. Get ready, everyone, to be led by the council. The three advisors cautiously made their way past the restricted foreign operators, their high-heeled shoes looking out of place on the concrete floor of the warehouse. Devon, who seemed to be leading them, kept up his diplomatic front. He met Marshal Harper with ease. I feel compelled to speak out against this flagrant violation of diplomatic protocol. Save it, Eleanor cut in. Someone has exposed your diplomatic cover. There is evidence of your existence, and every intelligence agency is currently reviewing it. No longer is the Shadow Council an unsubstantiated rumor. With an air of subtly menacing sophistication, Chen advanced. Nothing you've done has made any sense to you. We meticulously keep the equilibrium. Do you mean the power dynamic that you've orchestrated? You could have heard a frozen flame in Eleanor's voice. Putting security services at risk by employing Crawford and others like him. Agents that approach too closely are eliminated. Reznikov was adamant that we keep the peace. Manage the information flow. Stop fights from getting out of hand. James exhibited intercepts on the tactical screen by selling secret technology to the highest bidder. What about nations exchanging military secrets? A small fracture appeared in Devon's diplomatic mask. There must be a reasonable way for us to talk about this, Marshal. Although your evidence is troubling, it may be clarified. As you mentioned before, Tehran. Counselors retreated as Eleanor moved with a predatory elegance. Perhaps El Paso. Leave it at that. Embrace a world without shadows. More federal units were seen approaching through the windows of the command station. Not your average tactical squad, but rather the specialized units formed in response to the evidence that Eleanor released. Those operators were responsible for handling significant worldwide incidents. Eleanor informed the counselors that it was over. You have exposed your network. All throughout the globe, your crooked officials are being apprehended. In real time, your meticulously built shadow empire is crumbling. What you're releasing is beyond your comprehension. The worry in Devon's voice had grown real. When these secrets come to light, there is vultures. I get it completely. The serene terror of Eleanor's smile was unsettling. For decades, you have manipulated intelligence services, compromised operatives, and eliminated anyone who dared to challenge your authority. Those agents are now targeting you. James kept tabs on all international communications. Marshal, confirmation is being sent our way. Worldwide, intelligence agencies are occupying council facilities. People are being apprehended at the highest levels. Unimaginable, murmured Chen. According to Eleanor, our security systems were broken the second you attempted to have me killed in El Paso. People who believe they are untouchable have this problem, you know. Even in their own shadows, they never seek for specters. Realizing the full extent of their dilemma, the council members' equanimity finally crumbled. Eleanor hadn't merely revealed their scheme. Their entire power structure had been methodically undermined by her. She spoke softly to them, assuring them their choice was easy. Give in right this second. Assert your entire network with proof. If you're lucky, you'll make it through what's ahead. And she just shrugged. Figure out why they refer to me as the ghost. To his contained operators, Devon gestured desperately. The strongest possible force. Get rid of everyone. However, none of the international squads gave a damn. After seeing Eleanor's proof, they realized the council for what it actually was. Prosecutors presented evidence that the operators had been working for criminals who exploited spy services for financial gain. They won't help you, Eleanor said. Nobody is going to. You are all invited to judgment, counselors. You are about to face the specters you brought into existence. It was the end of the reign of the Shadow Council. Moreover, the specter's pursuit was nearly finished. A desperate calculation befitting trapped predators had replaced the council members' composed faces, which had collapsed. As they analyzed the scenario, Eleanor carefully observed their facial expressions and body language for clues about what they would do next. James quickly informed Marshal. We have observed multiple communications at a high level. A procedure for handling emergencies has been activated by the council. No doubt about it, Eleanor's voice maintained its composure. Please, show me. The tactical displays showed an influx of encrypted data transfers. As he sent commands into a satellite phone, Devon's hands trembled slightly. This is it, Ghost, he muttered, attempting to reassume his former air of dominance. Our global intelligence network has several safeguards that you are unaware of. How much vultures we sow, Operation Blackout, right? None of the 3 council members dared to answer Eleanor's inquiry. What is your plan B in the event that intelligence networks around the world go down? What a fascinating plan. What a shame the backdoor we discovered in the code was. Completely, Chen's diplomatic disguise came off. No way. The systems in question employ quantum encryption. Through the very means by which you were pilfering. After receiving Eleanor's nod, James showed further tactical data. Our field of study for the last decade's technology. Discoveries abound when one knows how and where to seek them out. They could see the foreign operators inside the command post keeping a close eye on the exchange through the windows of the post. As a result of this change in power dynamics, professional agents. Sir, while monitoring new feeds, James called out. There will be a global lockdown of all council buildings. It's like they're attempting a system cleanse. Eleanor remarked icily that it was too late. Word is starting to get around. They can all see who has been influencing them, the intelligence community, the police, and the military command structures. To communicate with his security detail, Reznikov subtly waved his hand. Then maybe we need to take some bolder steps. Eleanor subtly suggested that she wouldn't. Everyone on your team has seen the proof. Now they know the truth about you. Tell me how many agents you've given up. Count the number of operations you've sacrificed for financial gain. At the international squads, she grinned. Do you agree with that? The operators were still professional, but they took a different approach. The fact that their commanders were criminals who had misused intelligence services for personal benefit was now shown to the trained men and women who had been instructed to follow commands. A chirp escaped Devon's satellite phone. As he perused the message, his complexion turned pale. No, it's not feasible. Eleanor politely inquired about your Swiss accounts. It is astounding how fast financial institutions cooperate when confronted with proof of a global criminal plot. We are now freezing your emergency money. Then Chen seized Devon's arm. If we are able to reach the containment sites. James revealed that he was already in a compromised state and showed further tactical feeds. Council facilities on 3 different continents are being occupied by federal teams. Your contingency preparations are unraveling before your very eyes. The councilors' serenity crumbled as decades of meticulous manipulation crumbled around them, and Eleanor watched in horror. You rely on shadows to maintain your power, she whispered to them. Make use of them to conceal your activities, eradicate dangers, and keep command. Shadows, however, cast a reflection in the other direction as well. They conceal more than just the hunted from time to time. The voice of Marshal Kane reported through her tactical communicator. We have confirmation, Ghost. Globally, heads of councils are being apprehended. They have let their network down. With his courteous tone replaced by desperation, Devon shouted, You've doomed us all. The information we hold, the processes we manage. Their release will throw the power dynamic out of whack. With a deadly calm in her voice, Eleanor narrated the equilibrium you had created. The one you kept going by selling classified military information, corrupting agents, and killing anybody who got in your way. James kept tabs on all international communications. Marshal, the response is being coordinated by intelligence agencies around the world. In order to secure the compromised premises, they are halting all council operations. The councilors were assured by Eleanor that their option was easy. Give in right this second. Assert your entire network with proof. Deal with the legal system in more than one place. Or, she shrugged, you could discover the consequences of being pursued by every intelligence agency you've ever deceived. One last desperate move was made by Devon. From his jacket, he removed a tiny gadget, seemingly a dead man's switch. Codes for death, he declared. A part of every big intelligence network. Then, with just one signal, and after James fired a pinpoint shot, the gadget clattered out of his grasp. Even before the young operator drew his handgun, Eleanor had failed to notice him. She complimented the shot. And superb trigger control. Carefully striking the housing of the transmitter so as not to harm its electronics. Understood, ma'am. James responded with an air of professionalism. Also, I've been researching council equipment signatures for the past hour. Every one of their backup systems has the same flaw. The group of councilors gazed down at the broken gadget. Their final, desperate move was countered with pinpoint accuracy. In the vicinity, the foreign operators they had captured started to formally surrender to the squads led by Eleanor. Eleanor explained in a very delicate way. We differ in that respect. You accumulated power via coercion and intimidation for many years. I invested 10 years into creating something more robust. An association of experts who comprehend true devotion. Who have forgotten the meaning of serving justice rather than profit. More federal units were seen approaching through the windows of the command station. International task forces and specialized teams worked together, making plans to apprehend the council's top brass. Eleanor softly informed them that it was finished. Your shadowy realm has been revealed. All throughout the globe, your crooked officials are being apprehended. Your painstakingly built network is slowly falling apart. Now Devon's face betrayed his undying animosity. Nothing you've done has made any sense to you. What a nightmare you've created. In fact, I do, Eleanor said with an icy grin. When decades of wrongdoing are uncovered, I know just what to do. When manipulated agents become aware of their exploitation. When trained operators find out they've been using their skills to benefit crooks. James kept an eye on tactical feeds that showed the worldwide reaction. The intelligence community is working together to coordinate custody arrangements, Marshal. Council leadership is being pursued by multiple jurisdictions. They do, without a doubt. As their world crumbled around them, Eleanor saw the counselors fight for survival. Surprisingly, once the darkness is removed, all allegiance vanishes. Once individuals realize just who they have been helping. Justice on a global scale had turned its attention to the warehouse. There would be no spectacular gunfight to conclude Eleanor's 10-year pursuit. However, a corrupt power structure must be systematically dismantled. James updated Marshal on the status of the new data. First estimates are coming in. Recognized more than 300 corrupt officials. Numerous compromising operations brought to light. Confirmation, dozens of agents that were eliminated are now targets of the council. As per Eleanor's order, forward all relevant documents to the multinational task force. Give each intelligence agency a chance to see how they were deceived. The number of their people that were killed so that the council could make money. In a state of defeated quiet, the counselors watched as federal authorities prepared to arrest them. Their carefully crafted illusion of control and secrecy had been methodically exposed and destroyed by the identical operator type they had sought to eradicate. The specter had regained the ability to hunt. The specter's task was nearly finished. The most deadly predators, Eleanor knew from experience, were the ones who had nothing to lose. The council's rule was coming to a close. However, the last showdown had still to occur. As Devon made his last desperate attempt, the warehouse went into an explosion of chaos. The head of the council still had one card to play, even though he was in jail. All communication channels were immediately put into emergency mode as he depressed a concealed button on his watch. James contacted Marshal in a hurry. Lots of systems falling down. An organized cyber attack of some kind. With composure, Eleanor outlined their dead hand ceremony. Observing as security systems fail all around them. Final safeguard for the council. Plan to sow enough vultures to conceal their egress. The command post windows allowed them to observe the effects as they spread. No footage was captured by the security cameras. Global communication systems went down. There was complete silence on all encrypted channels used by the Federal Tactical Team. That contract should have been yours. With his controlled demeanor back, Devon scowled. The fire has spread. Similar to El Paso. A shiver ran down everyone's spine as Eleanor grinned. Do yourself a favor and find out who came up with your emergency procedures. We anticipated this kind of move from you after El Paso. James was quite efficient as he handled his station. Emergency procedures are activated, Marshal. Nothing moved from its designated spot. As the council members watched in increasing terror, their failsafe malfunctioned. Their protocol had shifted from crashing computers to revealing secret networks. Unveiling confidential messages. Exposed are decades of carefully hidden activities. Eleanor softly explained that it had been 10 years. 10 years of research on your routines, procedures, and safety nets. Is it seriously your belief that we aren't prepared for this? James' young operator reacted with military precision as Chen lunged for his console. Before he could get to the tools, the council member was face down and detained by professionals. James explained thoroughly the concept of force recon training to the man, as well as other guidance from the specter. They could observe the worldwide effects of the council's last-ditch gamble through the operational feeds that were still up and running. However, their dead-hand protocol was revealing everything rather than producing covering pandemonium. You are Marshal. A guarded channel carried the crackling sound of Kane's voice. While council buildings around the world fall black, our embedded systems monitor every move. All of their shadow nodes are becoming visible. Eleanor gave James a subtle nod. Let them see. Data was shown in a waterfall format on the tactical screens. A council's covert efforts are coming to light. Hidden spaces exposed. Transmitted messages that had been secret for decades were now exposed. Tell the grieving council members what I mean. We went beyond simply reviewing your protocols. We restored them. Absolutely no fail-safes. All systems for unexpected events. Each and every single resort. They were all transformed into back doors by us. Reznikov fought against the constraints placed on him. Quantum encryption protects our systems. Through the very means by which you were pilfering. Eleanor flashed a menacing grin. That tech we've been researching for the past decade? Discoveries abound when one knows how and where to seek them out. Devon lost all composure at that point. How do you even begin to comprehend what you've done? The vultures this unleashes. This will compromise intelligence services all across the globe. No, Eleanor said with an icy tone. We will clean up intelligence services all across the globe. The exposure of every corrupt official. Every operation that was compromised exposed. The truth revealed about every criminal plot. James kept an eye on the growing stream of revelations. Marshal, several agencies are reporting to us. Assembling a list of council sleeper agents. Exposed are concealed accounts. The dark arts exposed. Eleanor informed the heads of council that the darkness is fading. All of your creations. All of the things you changed. You sacrificed all to ensure the safety of others. The light was shining on everything. Federal tactical personnel were protecting the perimeter, as seen through the windows of the command station. However, these units had since changed. Responding to international protocols, these operators were experts in their field. Gearing up to apprehend the masterminds behind a worldwide plot. Eleanor told the defeated council members that their choice now was easy. Completely cooperate. Provide us with a detailed account of your activities, networks, and secret protocols. And she just shrugged. Seek retribution in every court you've harmed. According to what I've heard, the punishment for treason is still somewhat medieval in several of those nations. Devon tried to exert authority one final time. You are not entitled. All was kept in order. Manage the information flow. I stopped. What was prevented? You could have heard a frozen flame in Eleanor's voice. Defeated fairness. Avoided responsibility. Prevented the truth about your misdeeds from coming to light. More data is pouring in, according to James. Marshal, the response is being coordinated by intelligence agencies around the world. Protecting the exposed council facilities is their next priority. Agents who have been identified should be apprehended. You've upset decades of meticulous equilibrium, Chen faintly objected. How may these hidden truths cause such vultures? The equilibrium you preserved by killing? Vicky interrupted him. By way of treachery? By trading in loyal agents for money? She drew nearer, revealing the specter that had spooked countless criminals. That equilibrium was deserving of dismantling. In real time, the members of the council saw their meticulously built world crumble. They had implemented every possible security measure. Each and every one of their protocols. No precaution they had imagined. The operators they had sought to eradicate turned out to be the ones who turned everything against them. "Sir," while monitoring tactical streams, James spoke out. "Units of the International Task Force are nearing the finish line. Coordinating custody protocols among many authorities." As she observed the council leaders grapple with their newfound reality, Eleanor gave a subtle nod. "It is time for you to face true justice, sirs. Taking responsibility for your actions, rather than engaging in the usual covert maneuvers." The coordinated response of intelligence services worldwide could be heard through the tactical channels that stayed open. The Council's shadow empire was being brought down by a coalition of agencies that had been controlled and compromised for decades. Secretly, Eleanor informed them that this was their final opportunity. "Now is the time to begin speaking. Please fill us in on every aspect of your operations. If you're lucky, you'll make it through what's ahead. If not, then..." Cryptically, she grinned. "It has come to my attention that a few of your former assets are keen on discussing private matters pertaining to your operations from the past." A look of genuine terror crossed the faces of the council members. What became of the intelligence community's exposed manipulators was a matter of perfect knowledge to them. When decades of wrongdoing were exposed, devotion swiftly transformed into vengeance. As foreign units drew near the warehouse, Eleanor made the announcement that the ghost hunt was nearly done. "If you want to deal with the legal system, the only question is how you do it." She let the sense of menace to linger. As the Shadow Empire crumbled, its builders were on the verge of learning the hard way why certain predators should never be provoked. With an accuracy that astonished even Eleanor, the multinational task force descended. 12 intelligence agency representatives, all of whom have vested interests in seeing the council punished. They are all still vengeful over the deaths of operatives and the compromise of operations. As old acquaintances stepped out of their tactical vehicles, Eleanor couldn't help but notice the reunion. Survivors from Tehran, El Paso. In every operation where the council sought to persuade participants to disappear, James kept an eye on the teams that were coming fast. The CIA, MI6, Mossad, and DGSE operators are being tallied, marshal. Coordinating custody protocols among many authorities. As expected, Eleanor beamed an icy smile at the council members. "American intelligence was corrupted by you. Every significant service was manipulated by you. Everybody wants a piece of meat now." Fear gripped Devon as he beheld the coming operators. "What you're releasing is beyond your comprehension. The mysteries we guarded. We kept the equilibrium. The secrets you let go, are you saying?" Vicky interrupted him. "The equilibrium you preserve by killing. Incredible how your diplomatic demeanor completely disappears the moment genuine justice is on the horizon." The command post windows provided a view of the multinational troops deploying with competence and professionalism. This wasn't your average operator. Among the world's intelligence agencies, these were at the very top. They were the ones who dealt with the most delicate tasks. James quickly informed Marshall. "Council systems that have been exposed are providing us with additional data. Concealed amenities. Websites that are black in color. Unauthorized institution housing incarcerated individuals." It was Eleanor's command to send everything to the task force. Make sure every agency knows how extensive the corruption was. The number of their people that were killed so that the council could make money. In a final, futile effort, Chen tried to negotiate. "This can still be contained. Get everything in order. All of your proof vanishes. Your subjects are safeguarded. Similarly to the defense you provided in El Paso." You could have heard a frozen flame in Eleanor's voice. That very defense that resulted in the deaths of agents. The proof of your wrongdoings that was concealed. With perfect coordination, the foreign teams made their entrance. A number of the operators were known to Eleanor. Her kind are survivors. Those who had fought back against council cleanup squads and survived. The head of the MI6 team was received by Sarah. Has the scar from Tehran faded any? Sarah was one of many who responded. She spoke with an icy authority in her British accent. Been anticipating this specter for quite some time. Members of the council witnessed their worst dread come to life as representatives from several agencies rushed up to them. They had attempted to eradicate both males and women. Back now with official approval and virtuous intent. According to Eleanor, their decision is straightforward. Completely collaborate with all relevant agencies. Disclose all aspects of your business. And perhaps, just maybe, you will face justice in more civilized courts. Stand firm. She gave the gathered operators a knowing nod. It has come to my attention that the treatment of traitors is still very medieval in several nations. James watched as the worldwide reaction grew. Word got out about Marshall all throughout the globe. Securing council facilities. Secret agents apprehended. Freezes hidden accounts. As Eleanor informed the defeated council members, the darkness is dissipating. All of your creations. You sacrificed all to ensure the safety of others. All of the things you changed. The light was shining on everything. The intelligence community orchestrated the fall of the council's shadow government through encrypted connections. Decades of covert control and meticulous manipulation are eroding before our very eyes. Through your actions, you have ruined everything, Reznikov pleaded feebly. Power is delicately balanced. You managed to keep the peace by corrupting others. Through the years, Sarah's voice has carried a subdued fury. By way of treachery? By trading in loyal agents for money? As the foreign teams got ready to seize custody, Eleanor observed. Each department was responsible for pursuing its own justice and filing its own charges. The heads of the council would be answerable to more than one court. While monitoring tactical streams, James yelled out, "Sir." Worldwide, more and more council facilities are turning black. However, our embedded systems monitor every move. Everything in their shadow network is now on display. It was Eleanor's command to show them. A series of revelations unfolded on the tactical screens. Concealed processes revealed. Hidden spaces exposed. Decades of secret conversations exposed for scrutiny by all intelligence agencies. I tell you what, Eleanor explained to the council members. Your networks weren't the only ones we analyzed. We restored them. Absolutely no fail-safes. Every procedure. All systems for unexpected events. We transformed each one into a backdoor. Now Devon's expression was one of utter loathing. Nothing you've done has made any sense to you. How may these hidden truths cause such vultures? Surprisingly, yes. Coldly, Eleanor grinned. When decades of wrongdoing are uncovered, I know just what to do. When manipulated agents become aware of their exploitation. When trained operators find out they've been using their skills to benefit crooks. In spite of a lack of training, the foreign teams were able to secure transportation for the council members. Personal motivations were carried by each operator. Council cleansing operations resulted in the loss of colleagues. Jobs ruined as a result of their influence. Their corruption ruined lives. Justice is on the way, and the ghost search is coming to a close, Eleanor revealed. Unfortunately, the hardest part is still to come. In this place, every agency has to file charges. Scores need to be settled by every service. They could observe the arrival of further tactical teams through the windows of the command post. At last brought into the light after decades of cover-up, the warehouse had become a site of worldwide responsibility. While keeping an eye on international communications, James informed Marshall. The reaction is being coordinated by intelligence agencies throughout the globe. The Secret Council's activities are coming to light on every continent. As she saw the masterminds behind the corruption face the music, Eleanor nodded. Get them ready to go. Every agency is given an opportunity to achieve justice. Every service learns what happened to their missing operators. Everything that the council members had painstakingly built was crumbling to pieces. Their covert empire revealed. They exposed their manipulation. The same operator type they had sought to eradicate had their authority taken away from them. It was the last leg of the Ghost's journey. However, as decades of wrongdoing were ultimately brought to light, the repercussions would reverberate through intelligence agencies around the globe. As Eleanor stood on the loading dock of Miller Warehouse and watched the multinational teams get ready for transport, the sunrise turned the mountains of Montana a golden hue. The members of the council were being divided up. In order to face justice for their respective crimes, each senior leader traveled to a different jurisdiction. As he checked his tablet, James reported the final tally. 3,122 government buildings revealed across the globe. Identified more than 2,000 compromised agents. Immensely numerous operations emerged. In addition, Marshal Kane mentioned that this is only the start when he joined them. The world's intelligence agencies are far from finished combing through the material, they're discovering links we never knew existed. As she observed the loading of Devon into an armored carriage, Eleanor gave a silent nod. They masked their manipulation, crimes, and influence over global intelligence under the shadows they cast, which gave them power. Still, James saw that shadows cast both ways. They conceal more than just the hunted from time to time. Sarah, a member of the MI6 tactical squad, approached. No need to worry, the Tehran facility is safe. Everything was proven. Cleaning up the mess. The agents that were eliminated, the sales that are listed. Vicky instructed that copies be sent to the relevant agencies. Allow everyone to witness the extent of the corruption. The number of their people that were killed so that the council could make money. Greater numbers of tactical vehicles descended into the morning fog. As the Shadow Empire crumbles, each multinational squad gets ready to transfer its prisoners, evidence, and fragments. Sir, James yelled out, keeping tabs on international transmissions. Information from many agencies is reaching us. Members of the council who were sleeping on the job have been apprehended. Freezes hidden accounts. Hidden agendas revealed. Kane noticed that the dominoes were falling. Every corrupt official. Each agent that has been compromised. Each and every covert operation. Everything is becoming clear. As Chen was handed up to the Mossad, Eleanor observed the event. Anxieties for actual repercussions had supplanted the former council member's diplomatic front. When he asked Eleanor what happened next, she whispered it to him. There is a need for answers from every agency and service you deceived. Regarding their compromised activities, violated confidence, and lost agents. Even Chen's feeble protests were met with silence. Balanced for decades. The equilibrium you preserved by killing. Sarah's voice betrayed a subdued rage. For financial gain, by betraying and sacrificing operatives who were devoted to the cause. The multinational teams kept working methodically around them. Every operator brings their own unique drive. Council cleansing operations resulted in the loss of colleagues. Jobs ruined as a result of their influence. Their corruption ruined lives. Checking tactical feeds was reported by Marshall and James. Securing more council facilities globally. Intelligence agencies worldwide are coordinating the response. As Eleanor observed the preparations to transfer Reznikov to an intelligence agency in Europe, she gave a silent nod. Please forward all documents to the Global Task Force. The whole body of evidence, including all disclosed connections and operations. According to Kane, the waves aren't quite gone yet. Nobody saw how deep this went. Military contracts, political influence, international security protocols. According to Eleanor, they corrupted more than only intelligence services. The whole system was tainted by them. Preyed on international security for financial gain while hiding in plain sight. They could hear the ongoing global coordinated response over secure lines. Evidence revealed the full extent of the Council's activities, shattering decades of meticulous deception. "Sir," James shouted out to the people keeping tabs on everything. "Many different agencies are requesting our services. Everyone is eager to fill you in. Learn the steps you took to reveal the Council's network." Eleanor smiled icy and told them the truth. Bring up the topic of shadows. Concerning hunters who learned to be patient. Speaking of specters who retained all knowledge. In her preparation to accompany her detainees, Sarah double-checked her tactical equipment. In a decade, Spectre. You pursued them for a decade. Gathered your contacts. Got ready for this. I was given time. As Devon's vehicle was getting ready to leave, Eleanor observed. After their failed attempt to have me removed in El Paso, they believed my mission was complete. An additional loose end has been secured. On the contrary, James did grasp it. You underwent a transformation. From within their own shadows, something pursued them. As the foreign teams completed their warm-ups, the morning sun began to rise. Prisoners needed to be transported by each agency separately. The processing of its own evidence. It must seek its own justice. As the van sped away, Kane declared that the Council's rule had come to an end. Their covert empire revealed. They exposed their manipulation. Ripped of their authority. Eleanor gave a little nod, but her expression never relaxed. There is no longer any immediate danger. However, the effects will not end. New instances of corruption will emerge. Even more plots exposed. Subsequent shadows dissipated. And the Spectre? Subtly, Sarah inquired. After capturing their target, what becomes of the hunter? In response, Eleanor mentioned that there are always more shadows. There is always more wrongdoing to reveal. There is unending pursuit of justice. Using tactical feeds, James tracked the departing transports. The inmates were all sent to separate courts. Every agency is given an opportunity to achieve justice. It was fitting that Eleanor observed the cars drive away into the dawn. They must be held responsible in every country they ruined. They should be held responsible for each agent they gave up. On every occasion, they jeopardized precision. They annihilated every living thing. On this morning in Montana, the warehouse that had witnessed the last fall of the Council stood silent. Its influence, however, would reverberate through intelligence agencies across the globe. At last, the legal system was able to shine a light on decades of corruption. One last update was submitted by James, Sir. Every inmate on the Council is safe. Complete proof sent. Response coordinated by all relevant agencies. With a nod, Eleanor watched as the final vehicle disappeared into the distance. No longer will the ghosts pursue. Nevertheless, the task persists. You may always find additional darkness to dispel. There is unending pursuit of justice. As the foreign teams set out in the morning, the mountains were bathed in a golden light. They are all bringing with them a fragment of the fallen Shadow Empire. After years of treachery and deceit, everybody is seeking vengeance in their own way. The Spectre's task was over. However, the effects would linger. The sound reverberating through the world's spy agencies. They were finally forced to face the results of their decades-long manipulation. It was time to head home, Eleanor informed her colleagues. Returning to the ranch. Living the peaceful life again. But the truth was known to all of them. Given their nature. We are the survivors. People who hunt. Otherworldly beings. Nothing was ever truly completed. More darkness to dispel would always exist. There is unending pursuit of justice. The specter may go back to its pasture. Nonetheless, it would never stop watching. Prepared to resume hunting at the first sign of nightfall. Eleanor Harper watched the sunset over Montana from her ranch porch a month following the fall of the council. The peaceful routine of the Double R Ranch has resumed. Those in the know could see the changes, though. As they sipped their coffees, Edward joined her and promised more updates from the Global Task Force. Connections with the council are still being sought after. Officials' corruption is still being exposed. And they will for years to come, Eleanor said as she took the cup. Anywhere there was a council, there was a shadow empire. Established a strong presence in every entity. All of our services. Through all tiers of authority. Someone rang her phone. Here is another update from James. The post of agency coordinator was taken by the youthful operator. Providing assistance in analyzing the abundance of material evidence that has been presented. She got 4 additional council facilities secured. Identified 12 more sleeper agents. 2 more secret accounts have been frozen. Subtly, she grinned. The dominoes continue to tumble. As the sun began to set, Edward carefully examined his wife's face. Does it elude you? What about the quest? No, Eleanor responded after a little pause. Ultimately, the specter accomplished its goal. Dragged the corruption to light. Cast out the darkness. Others must now continue that effort. As night fell, the sound of approaching cars pierced the night air. This time it's not the menacing sound of motorbikes rumbling. Federal transportation, however, operates with a peaceful efficiency. Marshal Kane got out of the front car. Sarah and other members of the foreign teams will follow. They were all bringing files, tablets, and papers that needed the Spectre's help. Kane apologized for interrupting your retirement as they made their way to the porch. Once more. However, we are in need of your opinion on fresh proof. As they stepped into the ranch house, Eleanor gave a knowing nod. The kitchen table, which had once served as a gathering place for family meals, was covered with various items. In its current incarnation, it coordinated worldwide justice as a makeshift command center. Sarah revealed, with data, that council operations had been exposed in 12 additional countries. With each new leak comes more corrupted spies, crooked officials, and secret facilities. Studying the evidence, Eleanor watched as if pulling threads. With each link, more of the fabric they crafted became apparent. They created more shadows. James's voice was audible via the prearranged conference call. Marshal, patterns are emerging that are consistent with El Paso and Tehran. They also eliminated witnesses in other operations. Eleanor, of course, gave a knowing nod. The protocols were same across the board. The identical strategies for disguising evidence. Keeping witnesses silent. Deceiving reality. More cars were pulling up, as they could see through the windows. Various agency representatives, each contributing their unique aspects to the growing probe. She was informed by Kane that the council leaders are in a meeting. In an effort to evade punishment, they are all making agreements and presenting proof. Silence them. The grin on Eleanor's face was icy. I say they should be clean about every operation, scheme, and crime they were involved in. In their haste to escape, let them destroy what they've constructed. On her tactical tablet, Sarah looked. Cases are being prepared in various jurisdictions. The prosecution is being coordinated by international courts. Justice is something that everyone desires. In the proper way. As she lay out the material, Eleanor studied it. American intelligence was corrupted by the council as well. They broke every vow of loyalty, hacked every agency, and corrupted every service. James communicated his findings over the conference call. Dear Sir, additional confirmations are coming in. Security operations including the transfer of weapons, theft of technology, and violations of international security are linked to the Council's operations. As far as Eleanor could tell, the shadows were still fading. With each new discovery comes more evidence of deception, violation of trust, and corruption. As they reviewed the evidence, Edward served coffee for everyone. He had adjusted well to his wife's actual character, realizing that certain responsibilities actually never stopped. The leadership of the Black Vultures is also on board. According to what Kane revealed, they were involved in weapons trafficking, had ties to council operations, and were part of a bigger conspiracy. As she remembered the motorcyclists who had unwittingly contributed to the exposure of a global shadow empire, Eleanor nodded. In the end, everyone breaks the ice. The truth emerges from the darkness as the fires go down. They synchronized reactions to fresh data throughout the evening. More investigations, more arrests, and ultimately, more justice, are a result of each revelation. The effects will be felt for a long time. Sarah watched as they got ready to go. Possibly for generations. The council had an impact on every corner of the globe. Very well. With a forceful tone, Eleanor spoke. The time will come when every corrupt official will be brought to justice. Make sure that each compromised agent is held accountable. As the years pass, may the darkness fade. When night settled over the ranch in Montana, the international teams left. On the other hand, they would return with additional proof, links, and mysteries to uncover. It's not true that you're retiring, is it? Edward inquired as they observed the vanish of the automobiles. Eleanor clarified that the specter had retired. You can't assist other people discover the truth when you're busy pursuing shadows. Being the ghost and helping others see in the dark are two very different things. The last ding of her phone sounded. James has achieved success in a different legal system. Added transparency to council activities. Additional officials implicated in corruption removed from office. Another case resolved. She said softly as she watched the stars come out, the labor goes on. Over time, the darkness will always be dispelled. Truth cries out for illumination forever. Justice must always be served. The tranquility of the Double R Ranch's routine has returned. Additionally, it had transformed into something new. A meeting spot for hunters to plan their moves. In what ways was the evidence evaluated? Where the quest for truth was set off. Her peaceful life had been established here by Eleanor Harper. Shrouded in mystery, she had now constructed an additional item. Justice left behind. A group of people dedicated to finding the truth linked together. A power that dispels darkness. It was the end of the ghost search. However, the effects would linger. The sound reverberating through the world's spy agencies. Justice finally shone on decades of wrongdoing. Plus, if any fresh darkness attempted to emerge. Could corruption try to reconstruct? In the event that nightfall was imminent. A specter was always there, I suppose. Passionately seeking the truth at all times. Justice is perpetually on the horizon. As the night became darker in Montana, Eleanor grinned. She was now steady on her feet. In the midst of the reclusive rancher's wife and the fabled specter. Amidst the tug of responsibility and the pull of personal peace. After deciding to stop hunting. While also assisting others in their quest for justice. The shadow empire of the council had collapsed. Keeping the lights on, though, is effort. The importance of maintaining honesty. Through the administration of justice. We would keep working on that. By means of the hunters she had instructed. The system she had established. She had left behind a legacy. That was the final triumph for the ghost. Revealing more than one conspiracy was not enough. However, generating an energy that would persistently dispel darkness. No matter where they sought cover. The life of a rancher was resumed by Eleanor Harper. However, her influence endured. Whenever corruption is revealed. Everyone was given their due. All the truths revealed. The quest was over for the ghost. However, rumors about it would stay. A gentle nudge to those who would avoid light. That justice is brought to light in due time. All shadows are swept away by the truth in due time. That hide hunters under certain shadows. Not merely victims. 2 more amazing stories are about to load on your screen. If you love this one, you should definitely check out the others. To view, simply click. Be sure to subscribe as well. I would be deeply touched.
Disclaimer. This channel stands against all forms of intolerance, discrimination, racism, and violations of human rights. The stories shared here are original creations, developed to encourage reflection, understanding, and constructive dialogue. All content is produced with a commitment to respecting diversity and honoring human dignity.